Welcome back to He's a Giant, our special big board review episode. I'm your host, Sal, with my co-host, Monty, and our special guest host, again, thank you for being here, KSIXI. What's up, man?
What's going on, fellas? I cannot say how excited I am. Every year that we do this, it's April. We're so close to the draft. So much college football being watched. I'm excited.
Yep, this is going to be a fun episode. We're going to go over, KSI gave us his big board. This year he went all the way up to 100 players, which is fun. And so I felt like we had to do the same thing. So we have 100 players for all of us on our big board. I don't think we're going to be able to get to everybody. But It's kind of a fun class. It's one of those classes, right, where like I think it got shit on a little bit because the talent on the top in terms of blue chips is a little bit questionable. But it's a fairly good class in the top 100. A lot of starting caliber players. So it's kind of fun to go all the way up to 100 in this one. Is that what you thought too going into this?
Yeah, I mean, it's so deep that, a player that goes 35, 36, you could argue could go 96, 97. It's the middle class for this draft class is very, very deep. After I put this up on Twitter, I'm sure I'm going to get a bunch of other prospects that people are saying, "How did you not watch this guy? How did you not watch this guy?" And that's just how it's going to be for this year.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
What about you, Monty? How'd you feel going into all these guys?
I agree. I feel like there's a lot of players I like, and I feel like there's a lot of players I still am going to review. We still have a few more weeks to the draft, and I'm going to keep going. But I don't know. I think my biggest takeaway is how fast, and we knew this, we've talked about this, but kind of how fast this it drops off in this class, where it feels like it drops. Like I'm thinking of guys that are in other classes and just thinking like, man, where would that guy be in this class? Like he might be a top 10, and I've had him like a 20s in other drafts.
At some point, we'll probably look back at like the 2024 class and be like, just go down the list of, would this guy have been top 10? Would this guy been? We're probably going to go pretty far down that first round list and be like, yep, top 10, top 10, top 10 in this class. It's just that kind of class.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Before we get into that, there's some fun stuff to talk about. Obviously, the most important news coming out around these parts lately is that Mike Vrabel is nailing Diana Rossini, and she's apparently, she's out there. What a crazy story. People pulled up like the stuff from her like days of covering the in Washington. The whole thing with, what was it, McCagnon, right? Or the GM then, and his wife said, "Oh, she's side." Yes, that's what it was. And then like there was some story with her and like what's his face, McVay. Apparently, it's a ridiculous set of stories, right? I mean, I actually kind of I get a kick out of it. I think it's a funny. I mean, it's sad because they're married, but it's just kind of a funny story to watch that stuff come out. Like they're kind of not really good at this. Also, like they freaking they decided to go and like shack up in Sedona, like right before the meetings in Phoenix. like they're like, oh yeah, they're like real slick, right? Like, oh, let's just go to Sedona for a day, no big deal. Hilarious,
real smart.
I appreciate
the saddest. Yeah, the saddest has to be all the clips of her just shitting on her husband, which just makes it even worse.
And for like no reason, like just randomly taking a shit on him on Twitter for no reason. So, anyway, I kind of needed the humor today because it set me up nicely for like the big news in Giants land today, which is that we signed our right guard. Monty's dream came true finally. A veteran, Vetmin deal for Daniel Falafel. 380 pounds of monster right guard to pair with 340 pounds of Evan Neal at left guard. What do you think, Monty? Are you excited?
No, I think you're a terrorist, and I think this is all your fault. And I think now you're in our chats like, now, we could, if we don't get a guard in the draft, we could just roll with Falele. Everything would be fine. I'm like, no, that's not what I want. That's not how I want.
I think you need to come to grips with the very real possibility. Well, all joking aside, there is a real possibility that he wins the right guard spot, because who the hell else is
Get me
right?
Kevin Zeitler. You stopped tweeting at Kevin Zeitler's wife. This is your
It's
fault.
my fault. I treated
Yeah,
his wife.
stop.
I treated him. Listen, we can still sign Kevin Zeitler. Look, it's a vet min deal. We need to chill out a little bit. These are
I'm fine with the
signings.
vet
I don't
min.
care.
But I don't want to hear him starting.
Honestly, my take on it.
I mean, go
ahead, man.
We've got a boatload of veterans now, right? We've got Aaron Stinney, we've got Lucas Patrick, we've got Josh Suzudu, Evan Neal, Daniel Falafel. I'm sure I'm missing one or two, but maybe we try Marcus Bowe there. Who knows? It's just at what point do you say, okay, maybe we should invest just a little bit more instead of just throwing bodies at the problem? Is it going to be in the draft? I hope so. Because, you hire Greg Roman, you sign Patrick Ricard to the richest deal for a fullback in NFL history. You want to run some RPO stuff with Jackson Dart. You kind of need an offensive line. And if you're running a gap scheme, that right guard's going to be kind of important. Although, Monty, listen, Daniel Falalele, pulling anything? Does that do anything for you?
Can he run? Is he capable of running?
He can run really well for a 380-pound man. Does that mean anything?
For a fat ass, he can run well.
He can move for a fat ass. There's a lot of momentum there. Listen, they're all vet mins, right? So there's like in one way, like Josh Azudu too, by the way. I think you forgot him. Like in one way, it's like that scene in The Dark Knight when Joker like kills the one gangster, and he's like, anybody want a job? And he like breaks the stick in half, and he's like, I only have a job for two of you, right? And there's three of them, and he's like let's see who kills each other, and then you guys, the survivor gets a job. So it's kind of like that. You're almost pitting all these vet min guys against each other and saying, all right, who's going to get a job? And if that's what it is, I'm totally fine with it. Like you do need some depth guys. You do need, whether you like it or not, like these veteran backups, they're bad starters, and it's okay to have them. And I'm okay with having them on the roster at vet min deals. Where it becomes problematic, obviously, is if that's the plan. I don't think that's the plan. But there's a world where that ends up the plan, right? Like I think what it is leading to is it's telling you that they're definitely going to be taking a close look at guard early in this draft. But this is what I was saying, and you don't like it, but if for whatever reason they don't think the value matches, they don't get the guy they want on the O-line in the first two picks, my guess is they're comfortable rolling with Falafel for a year, and just seeing how it goes. I'm not saying I'd do it, but I'm just telling you what I think they would do.
The backup plan should be, we didn't get a guy. Well, there's lots of vets out there. We can go sign one to start. It shouldn't be Falafel's our starter.
Hopefully, right? I mean, he's a vet man, so we'll see.
Well, they're going to look competent against our defensive line, at least, right? In training camp?
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be smoking on whoever we have. Who do we have? We don't have anybody. So the one guy we have was surgically like unable to fly or something, right? Sam Roberts. So we don't have anybody else. I guess Darius Alexander. Anyway, that's where we are. We'll see what they do. But I do think, the other possibility we should talk about is it's entirely possible that John Harbaugh came here once he got in the building and he did a deep dive and looked at all the players and watched their film. He might have come away with the conclusion like, these guys suck. I might not be able to salvage this shit. Maybe it's, maybe the right play here is just like be conservative year one and just bring in, not tie up money for the future and really focus on building through the draft for year two and not, sign some key guys who I think will be contributors for a few years, which is, those are the guys they gave the 3-year deals to. But everybody else, let's just try to put together a roster and coach them up for some wins. I mean, that's a very real possibility that he's just not willing to go all in on this squad. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we'll see, man. I hope that's not the case, but it'll be interesting how he plays this. I mean, look, we've talked about it. I think there's an idea he's playing the comp game. you can't really get a good feel for what he's doing until after the draft, where that goes away and there's really no excuses anymore. So, we'll get a better idea then, I think.
Yep. All right. Do you guys want to jump into the big board stuff? Because we got a lot of players to go over.
Yeah, sure. Why don't we
Let's do
go
it.
ahead and just take a look at KSIXIs? We'll debut that, and then I have a spreadsheet with all of ours together so we can talk and compare. But let's just take a look at his first, and we'll do our annual reveals. All right, let me pull
Beautiful.
that up. Where the heck is it?
And while Monty figures out how to be an IT guy, happy the Beast Day to everybody. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to dig into it yet, but oh man, he went over 2,000 players this year. He's insane. And I don't know if you saw the format is much. The format this year is much better. I don't know if you looked at it. It's like really well put together, broken down.
Yeah, they started to do that last year, and they really picked it up this year and really took off with it. Okay, I think
everybody in the draft community just tips their cap at Dane Brugler. He's one of the best, if not the best.
The effort he puts in is unmatched.
All right.
Yes.
Zoom that sucker in as much as possible for everybody to see. So this is KSI's big board. You want to tell these good people how you break down the prospects and how you color code this thing?
Yeah. So let me first say this is year 14 or 15 for me now, looking at the draft with more of a critical lens. And every year, right, you try and grow and learn from your mistakes and try and get better. There are a lot of objective things that we look for, right, in how players play with the film, but the subjective part is projection. And so a lot of this, right, is projection. And I think a lot of disagreement that we may have is based off of how these players will project to the next level.
Yep.
When I looked at these players, I watched at least 2 games. Some of them a lot more. Like I'm getting tired of watching Ohio State, but and I try and look at where these players are going to project. And this is a vertically set board, but it should be horizontal. It just looked prettier vertically. And so each tier is a tier of its own. And more so this year than in years prior. The difference between, like, say, my number 9 player, Mauigoa, and Kenyon Sadiq, I'm not going to argue if you like someone lower on my list within that tier. I'm not going to argue because they are very, very close together. And so that's the way that I broke it down. The players within that tier, I think that they're very, very closely tied together, and it's all a matter of personal preference. And we talked about this in the beginning of the episode, right? This is an imperfect draft, and I think more so this year than in years prior, you're really looking for more team fits because these players are not, scheme versatile in a lot of cases, especially, once you get past the 20s. And so you're looking for players that are going to fit your scheme and fit your team. And so if you like, I don't know, Ksixi Concepcion more than Denzel Boston or vice versa, go for it. I mean, that's fine. I'm cool with that. And so that's the way that I look at things. One thing that I forgot to do, Monty, is I have a few asterisk players that had ACL tears or injuries. I put one for Isaiah World, but I forgot the others. We can talk about that later. But there's a few asterisks. So someone mentioned Jermon McCoy at 14. He would be an asterisk. If he didn't tear his ACL, he'd be a full tier up. He would be competing for my number 1 overall player.
Wow.
But I think there's a few of those. So Connor Liu, I really like Connor Liu. Chris Bell's another one. So there's a couple of those, and we'll point them out as we go along.
Yeah, that makes sense. I always struggle with trying to handle the injury. It's hard to grade these sometimes. There's a lot of factors. I don't know how you do it. It looks like the way you do it is, we've talked about this past. You really don't factor. It doesn't look like positional value, and you really just kind of stack the best players. Am I right there? No?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Correct. Okay. Got it. Yeah. I'm like, got Downs and Love there, and I'm okay. But yeah. No, I do the same. I find it hard to try to include positional value in there, and I just try to stack it who I think's better. But yeah, and then the injuries are another aspect in it where I try not to kill a guy too much for an injury, but at the same time, it's like impossible not to some extent.
And that's where the projection comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to project them coming back off an injury. And some positions are affected more by injury than others,
For sure. All right. So with that said, how do we want to do this, Sal? Do we want to, go through this board a little bit first, or you want me to just pull up the spreadsheet and we can start doing some of our comparisons and see where we disagree?
No, I think we should let I think we should let you at least through your first 10 picks or so, like, go through it, and then let's if you, and then we can show you ours, and whatever, like, I don't care, but if you want to go run through your list and just kind of explain where you are, at least towards the top in the first round, I think that would be helpful for everybody to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with Caleb Downs. I've had Caleb Downs in the number 1 slot since the beginning of the year. He's been my number 1 player. I've been looking for someone to knock him down, and I can't find it. And to be honest with you, if I had to pick one player that would be that level, we talk about how this draft class is not that great at the top. Caleb Downs would be the exception. The knocks on him are size, athleticism, and the fact that he didn't have to play a lot of man coverage. And none of those negatives really kind of fit for me. When it comes to not really playing a ton of man coverage in 2025, lest I remind you, this dude a few years ago was locking down Brock fucking Bowers in man coverage. I dare someone to find me any play of Caleb Downs that shows that he's not athletic enough to go in the top 10. You won't find it. You won't find it. And even if and I think a lot of the argument stems from him not working out at the combine, and I'm sure he has his reasons for not doing so, but at the end of the day, it's the draft is not. We're here to draft football players, not athletes, right? That's what the great Jerry Reese said. And Caleb Downs, the trigger he plays with, the pattern recognition that he plays with, and the spacing, right? He knows exactly where to be in coverage. And Matt Patricia does not run a simple vanilla defense. He doesn't. He disguises coverages. He has Caleb Downs, being center fielder cover 1, rolling into a split safety look, pushing him out to corner. One of the most fun games that I watched of Caleb Downs was versus Texas. And he played corner snaps. He played just routine nickel. He played too high, and he did so at an incredible level. There are people that will want to put him as just a box safety because they see the highlights where he just click and close, on those flat routes that the RBs take and things like that. But when you watch the games and you watch the way that he positions himself and comes off and cuts off throwing lanes, it's magical. And I think Matt Patricia did say he's the smartest player that he's ever had or something like that, right? You can see it, right? Sometimes you don't really know if a player is guessing or not, but with Caleb Downs, you can freaking see it. Shout out to Dan Schneier. They did, I think Big Blue Banner did their Caleb Downs episode, and I was gonna mention this one play, and he mentioned this play. Maybe he read my mind, but there was a play versus Penn State. It was late in the fourth quarter. It was 4th and goal versus Penn State, and Downs was playing corner man coverage, and he actually baited the quarterback into throwing behind him. He actually peeled off his guy at the goal line and had a pass defense on a player that was running behind him, and that's before the quarterback threw the pass. And that's the type of player that Caleb Downs is. I think he's the goods. I don't really see any real downside outside of, hey, he might need to prove a little bit more in man coverage, but apart from that, I just love him. Now, Jeremiah Love, I just think he's also just really, really good. There's tough to see a downside. I think people have some questions about his vision. I didn't really see that. I think that he is a home run hitter. I personally would have him over Ashton Genty. I don't think he's at the level of Saquon Barkley or Bijan Robinson. I think they're two completely different tiers. But I think that he picks the right gaps. He's a patient runner, and the explosiveness is comparable to Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, he doesn't play like Jahmyr Gibbs, right? That's what people comp him to. I think what separates Jahmyr Gibbs is when Jahmyr Gibbs makes his cuts, you can see he's so smooth. He kind of floats in and out of his breaks, whereas Jeremiah Love is a little bit more stop and start, a little bit more explosive. But in a sense, he's a little bit more sudden. So he's not quite like Jahmyr Gibbs. And I actually think that Jeremiah Love is better than Jahmyr Gibbs coming out of college. But I'm not going to say he's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he'll be a fantasy football monster depending on where he goes. But I think he's just a complete running back prospect, and I think out of all of the positions, there is the biggest tier difference between Jeremiah Love and the next best running back. I don't know if you guys feel that same way, but I think it's Jeremiah Love, and then way down everybody else. Sonny Styles. I'm gonna talk about.
I was just gonna say I'm not even a huge Love guy, and I completely agree. I'm not even a huge Love guy.
Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. I'm gonna just talk about both of them together. I have Styles ahead of Reese just because I think I value the coverage ability for Styles more than I do the pass rushing ability for Arvell Reese. But I think both are insanely good prospects. I think that the fact that Sonny Styles is still learning the position and was so dominant sometimes for Ohio State and just kept getting better and better and better as the year went on, makes him probably the highest ceiling player in the draft. I think that my questions with Styles comes with him just being a tick late on some of these on run plays. Personally, I don't have issues with Styles' tackling, and I think Monty, we had a little bit of a conversation on Twitter about this. There are no questions. People question Sonny Styles' physicality. There's no questions there. It's just that when you're looking at Arvell Reese and Arvell Reese just hits you like a hammer hits a nail, or Mike Vrabel hits Diana Rossini, you're not gonna you can't really compare Sonny Styles to that, right? So I think the projection for Styles is wild, and I will say this: I think is a great linebacker class, but there's only one linebacker that I would feel comfortable putting day one as a true Tampa 2 middle linebacker, one that can range in the deep half of the field, and that's Sonny Styles. I mean, you can't say that about CJ Allen. You can't say that about Anthony Hill. You can't say that about Jacob Rodriguez. That's Sonny Styles. Arvell Reese, people want to put him at edge rusher. I think, and people compare him to Abdul Carter, which is like, nobody's watched Arvell Reese if you compare him to Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter is an edge rusher that can play some snaps at linebacker. Yeah. Arvell Reese is a linebacker that can play some snaps at edge rusher. And I mean, I think he's probably the best blitzing linebacker in the draft. I think that the power that he plays with, that first step when he gets off the edge, is incredible. And I think that Arvell Reese is also a very, very smart player with a tremendous amount of range. Referencing that Texas game, it was Arvell Reese who Matt Patricia had entrusted with spying on Arch Manning. It wasn't Sonny Styles. He didn't have Caleb Downs come down. It was Arvell Reese. And so I think that Arvell Reese is probably going to be gone before the Giants pick. But he's someone that I really, really like. And Sonny Styles, I think, has the highest ceiling. Fernando Mendoza, I don't really have a ton to say about him. I think he's just a very clean prospect. He's more athletic than people give him credit for, although we did see that quite a bit during the playoffs. But his processing and his ability to throw middle of the field is phenomenal. I think he's going to be a great pick for the Raiders and for Clint Kubiak. He's a Clint Kubiak quarterback.
Oh, 100. He's a Shanahan guy.
And then, yeah. And then, David Bailey and Ruben Bain. I know you guys have, and I know we're probably I know you guys are itching to talk about Ruben Bain. You guys did talk about Ruben Bain versus David Bailey. So a lot of, in my rankings, I have a lot of the same positional players next to each other. What that means is that I pretty much have them neck and neck. But obviously, David Bailey and Ruben Bain are very, very different players, right? I think that David Bailey, one thing I will say, a lot of people will say, I hate pro comps. I don't like comparing draft picks to pro players. I disagree. I love pro comps because it gives you a good idea. And for people who don't necessarily watch a lot of these players, it gives you an idea of how they might fit on your team, how they might fit in your scheme. As long as you understand that, I'm not saying the player is going to be as good as this player, right?
Yeah.
But it's just their play style. When I saw David Bailey, I really saw a lot of Brian Burns. I think when it comes to the first step and the length that David Bailey has, I think that's what's enticing a lot of people. And what I think separates him from a lot of the other first step edge rushers that are in, there's a lot, is that I think David Bailey's motor is incredible. I think that when we look at Texas Tech is like, I can't even call them Timu Ohio State because they have, but that defense is like an Avengers level defense on its own. And David Bailey consistently stood out. He and his running mate Romello Height, they both were collapsing the pocket. David Bailey did it with speed. He did it with power. And I think that he has skills that are going to translate really, really well. Ruben Bain, let me first say, I don't give a shit about what his arm length is because the leverage he plays with makes that irrelevant. There are some players where I do care about their arm length because of the way they play. Like, spoiler, Cassius Howell. I mean, he has a fantastic highlight tape, but he's got T-Rex arms, and it shows for him. You wouldn't know with Ruben Bain. I see Ruben Bain as like a Justin Tuck type of player. He's got the thing with Justin Tuck and Ruben Bain is you see how thick they are. They're like the bendiest thick guys that I've seen. And they can hold up at the point of attack really, really well. The one question I have about Ruben Bain is what's his natural fit? I think it would be more in like that base 4-3, like heads up against the offensive tackle, like a 4-eye. But I think that Ruben Bain's going to be a really, really good two-way player. Probably the best two-way end in this draft. And then Vega Iaone, I kind of have to talk about him with Francis Mauigoa because I do have them on different tiers. But the only reason for that is I think that Iaone is the best offensive lineman in the draft. I think his pass protection is like a thing of beauty. For a guard, his footwork is mesmerizing, and you know he has lapses in how he plays, but and I have questions about his run game fits, but I think that he has probably the most powerful hands in the draft. And I don't see very many balance issues with him. He looks like Will Hernandez. Like, I mean, he looks like Will Hernandez. You know, he looks kind of top heavy, but he doesn't have the same balance issues. With Francis Mauigoa, I think he's an incredible prospect. Francis, you know, Ksixi does not have balance issues either. My concern with Ksixi is his foot speed. And that's why a lot of people are projecting him to guard. And I think he's going to be an amazing guard prospect, but that is a little bit more of a projection. And the foot speed does concern me a little bit. I also think that Vega is a little less technically sound than Ksixi, and so I think there's a ceiling argument to be made for Vega. But even though I have them on a separate tier, I think that they're definitely close. But I have them on that separate tier because I think that Mauigoa as a guard is going to be a little bit more of a projection, and that's really the difference that I had. But that's kind of like my top 8 or 9. I'm excited to hear about what you guys have to think.
No, I appreciate that's a great rundown. We have, I think, similar views on a lot of these players. We have them in different orders. You want to throw up our list here?
Yeah, let's just throw it up, and we have our comparisons here, so it will show basically where our biggest differences are. So let me put this up here, and I'll zoom in. All right, so you'll see our average rank here, which is where what is sorted by. It will be here. You'll see KSIXI's rank, and you'll see our differences. So you'll see in this first tier or so that we kind of talked about, our biggest differences were Ruben Bain and Jeremiah Love. You know, I think as far as Ruben Bain, you know, Sal and I have been in love with him since the moment we watched him. I think that he's a guy who just completely takes over games and can change a game at any moment. I could certainly have made an argument for Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles, but to me, Ruben Bain is just a guy who's done it. He's done it. He gets better throughout the game. His production is amazing. He just screams like a dominant player in the NFL to me.
Yeah. The arm thing it's not unreal. It's a real discussion point. But as you mentioned, KSI, like, show me one clip on tape where it affects his pass rush, his run defense, his ability to stay. There's nothing. Like, in fact, show me a rep where he loses. How about that challenge, right? Show me a rep all year where he actually loses the rep. I cannot think of a single other player in this draft that looked like he almost won every single rep in every single game. And it's hard for me to watch that and come away with the conclusion of anything other than he looks like the best player in this draft. And I think that if his arms were like 1.5 inches longer, I think that would be the consensus view. You know, they're not, but I think that's kind of how I feel. And I don't think his arm length affects him. Is he a good fit for the Giants? I think he's a better fit for the Giants than the other potential edge rushers, you know, because of the way he plays, you know, and I agree with the Justin Tuck comp. You know, he's basically a 4-3 defensive end. And I think he's the kind of guy that you could slide inside and, you know, for certain reps and you have him line up on over tackles. And chances are he's coming at you, you know, low to the ground and he gets his hand like I don't care what his arm length is. He's going to be able to get his hands inside the chest of NFL tackles and he'll drive them backwards. You know, he'll be able to use counter moves. He'll be able to go outside, inside. Like he has a wide array of pass rush moves in addition to his speed to power. Like I just don't see a lot of weaknesses in his game. I'll put it this way. I'd be very surprised if he's a bust in the NFL. I think he's going to be a very, very productive NFL edge rusher.
I'm a Miami Hurricane fan. You know, I can't disagree at all. You know, I've watched him every single game, and to your point, Sal, you know, he saves his best games for the biggest moments.
And later in games, you know, he gets better as a game. He gets better. Yeah, he's a finisher, and that matters. Like when you watch filming, when you watch only things like cut-ups, you don't get to see like the flow of the game. When you watch the whole game, you see like the score, the down, the distance. You can tell who's wearing down and who's becoming less impactful in the third quarter, the fourth quarter, late in the fourth. And then you watch guys like Bain, and he's all over the field late in the fourth quarter, making plays. He has absolutely. And it's not just like, oh, he can turn it on like a switch. Like they're playing a physical game. He's fighting for 4 quarters. He has the stamina to go toe to toe with anybody. Everybody else wears out. This guy's going 100 miles an hour at the end. I'm betting on that guy every week. So I've made a lot of fun of his T-Rex arms, and I have fun with all the other Miami fans, but there's no way he's not my favorite player in terms of just top prospect in this class. So I'll leave it at that with him. You talked a lot about go ahead.
The last thing I was saying, the main thing for me is he has no weakness. I mean, if you go ahead and you look across the scores, the only thing I have below a 4 is his drop coverage because he's not a coverage guy. Outside of that, I have a 4 out of 5. I have a 4 or a 5 for every single it's insane how good he is.
Yep. You talked about Downs already. I mean, I don't think there's much else to say. Yes, Patricia said he's the smartest player he's ever coached, and I don't see a single weakness in Caleb Downs' game. Like nothing. I don't see anything. I think he's so elite that he's become boring to people. Like he truly is a guy that people are taking for granted because he's so elite, like consistently elite, that people are taking how elite he is for granted. He has like perennial all-pro written all over him, right? Like just from the get-go, he's the green dot guy. He's the team captain, glue of the defense, force multiplier. Like he's all of it. Somebody in the comments, mentioned, I think it was K-Mac, about like, why didn't he test? I can't speak to why guys don't test nowadays. I think there's a lot of stuff that goes on with agents, and what your draft floor is. But if you're worried about his athleticism, you shouldn't be. Just watch him on tape. He has all the athleticism in the world that you need. Show me, just like with Bain. With Bain, I'm saying, show me where he loses a rep. Show me a play where Downs isn't there on time or well ahead of time. You can't find it. It's not there. It's either closing speed, instinct. It's the cerebral aspects of the game. It's all of it. You cannot go wrong taking this kid. My favorite player in the draft, though, is the guy who came up number 3 in our overall ranking. By the way, our ranking was like Monty and I had our own list, and we averaged out like where we rank guys. We had some discrepancies, but this is how we do things, right? We just kind of averaged out. So I love Sonny Styles. You mentioned everything. I've argued with people about him, who keep asking, like, are you sure he's not Isaiah Simmons? And I'll say, no, Isaiah Simmons had no real position. He had no real position at Clemson. He was just an athlete, whereas Sonny Styles was a safety who played a full year at Mike linebacker and got better and better and better every game. And I keep telling people, like, the comp, if you want to make a comp of a non-traditional linebacker for Sonny Styles, the comp is probably Kyle Hamilton. Like, he's that kind of a player. He's your he can be your apex defender. He can be your Mike linebacker taking away the run. He's sideline to sideline. He's great in coverage. He, like Downs, is extremely instinctive. You can't teach some of the stuff these guys have. And I think he's a very good tackler. He just comes in high because he's 6'5", but he's a sound wrap tackler. Dan Jeremiah said, and I think he described him well. He said he's a guy that, has stopped you in your tracks power when he tackles you. I think that's pretty consistent with what you see on film. He doesn't blow people away. He just kind of hits them, stops them, takes them down, sound. Whereas it looks strange because Arvell Reese has knock you back power, right? Arvell Reese hits you with violence, and the two look distinct. Right. So you watch them on tape and you're like, oh, who's this other guy, right? But I love Styles. I think he's the highest I agree with you. He's the highest upside player in this draft. I think he has the potential to become a Fred Warner. I know that's lofty, but he really has that kind of athletic upside. He's already a very good football player. And then, where our list starts getting a little funky is Vega. We have him at 4, but we're going off just our own film review and our grading. We're sticking to our grading system here. Yeah. Monty, I know, wasn't like super high on Vega as a prospect of being a top guy until we actually sat down and watched some games, and he came away like, oh shit, we just graded him. This guy's out of his world.
It was really grading it when I put it. It's because we talked about it, Sal. Like I went over it and I'm like, look, I know I have some inherent biases the way I scout, and I'm trying to look past it. One of those things, I like athleticism a lot at the offensive line position, and that is not Vega's game. And every single one of my criticisms goes back to his athleticism. It's him not getting to hit landmarks, him struggling with space with some speed rushers, his recovery ability. It's those type of things that all kind of come back to his athleticism. But then you go through everything else, and he's just elite in so many places. And I'm like, yeah, look, there's been so many guys on the offensive line who've succeeded without being elite athletes. Although I'd prefer it, I think it becomes a part where you got to stop focusing on what a guy can't do and focus on what he can do. And I think, the other guy I came, a little bit further from was with Caleb Downs. I did a little bit more of that. I think the Caleb Downs is a little bit different because my question is more like, I want, in an ideal world, I want my safety to be an elite coverage guy. I know Caleb Downs an elite, run defense guy. I think he could be that, but I think that there's still some projection there. I've seen the elite run defense. He wasn't asked to do as much of the cover stuff. Vega, he's not going to suddenly turn into a great athlete. That's a little bit different, but just at the end of the day, just focusing on what they are elite on, what they are. It's like, he's got to stop focusing so much on what they can't do and focus on what they can do.
I think with Vega, so the biggest concern that I had with Vega was, the perceived weakness, as a run blocker, and I think that is certainly the weaker part of his game. But as you go through Penn State's season, you saw a noticeable improvement. I mean, I think one game that I watched, Nebraska, I think it was. I mean, the dude was unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, he was kicking. I mean, he always kicks ass as a pass protector, but as a run blocker, that was an eye-opening game for me. I think he's just athletic enough to run to be a passable run blocker in these outside zone schemes where he's asked to get these reach blocks and things like that. I don't think you necessarily want him there. I think you want him more in a gap scheme where he can just try and drive people down. But I think he's my number one offensive lineman for a reason, and same with you guys, right? Like I think what he put on tape is just phenomenal.
Well, I think he did a fair amount as the season went on. You saw him get better and better at inside zone. I think you saw him climb and do really well. Like, I mean, obviously he doesn't need help. He kind of dominates in man block, but just him climbing to the second level and taking out linebackers and DBs coming downhill and clearing a run path. He does that. He did that exceptionally well. And I view his sort of, relative weakness as a run blocker compared to his elite trait of as pass blocker, analogous to how we viewed Andrew Thomas a couple of years ago. Like, this is an elite player playing offensive line with one superpower and one okay skill set that you're hoping gets a little better with time. But you're going to bet on this specimen absolutely getting there. I would be willing to bet today that after a year or two in the NFL, Vega Iaone is elite at both pass and run blocking. Now, he's not going to be like a fleet of foot, puller. He's not going to be this great outside zone guy. I don't think that's what you're asking him to do. But I think in terms of man blocking, gap, inside zone, I think you're going to view him as an elite run blocker too. So I'd be willing to bet on his future. Sounds like you would agree.
And guess what? Francis runs.
Yeah, exactly. Francis is interesting. I don't think Francis is as good as Vega. I don't think and I only say that because I agree with you that Francis's best position is probably guard. Probably. I think he will project to probably be an elite guard. I can even see that, right? But you're projecting because he's a tackle and he's a damn good tackle. So I can't grade him as high as Vega, but I can see more intrinsic value to the prospect than Vega, right? Because in a pinch, Francis can play tackle for you. And in a pinch, I think he can play tackle for a whole year for you and be fine.
I still think he could be a career tackle personally. I'm very high on Mauigoa. I think he'd be great at guard. I think you could say he'd be better at guard, but I think he 100% deserves a shot to play tackle in this league, and I think he could be one of the better right tackles. If not, I mean, honestly, just tackles in general in the NFL. He's up there with most of the top offensive tackle prospects we've seen year to year. He's not Penny Sewell by any means, but I think year to year, the top offensive tackle prospects, to me, he's right there with any of them.
Yeah. What's going to be interesting? Well, two things. Brugler had Fano higher. I think a lot of the NFL draft community, and from a scouting perspective, probably has Fano higher, and we can get into that when we go over him. But what's going to be interesting is, let's just say the Giants do like both Vega and Francis, and they kind of want to go with one of them. Is which one do you go with, right? And I think that it becomes interesting. Do you go with the guy who's already kind of projecting right away from his college play as like kind of a high level elite guard, plug and play? Or do you go with the guy who's a really damn good tackle who projects potentially as an elite guard, but you haven't seen him do it? I don't know. I really don't know. Because I think that the value of a good tackle is if you're just looking at the finances of it, and I don't like to do that too much, but it's about the same as like the value of an elite guard, right? Like they make kind of about the same money. In fact, I think the guards actually make more money if they're at a high level. So I think you can argue that if they're going by valuation and floor, they may choose to go with Vega. If you're going with the flexibility of playing tackle and guard, and you want somebody to be good at both, and you really want that tackle for the future, you go with Francis. But I think this is a subplot discussion for the Giants that's probably not being discussed enough in terms of like what they might do either at 5 or if they trade down. They clearly are going to need offensive linemen in this draft. And these are the two best ones. I think from the three of us, we all agree these are the two best, and they're going to have a shot at taking them.
Yep. And to answer that question, Sal, you guessed what my answer was. I mean, for me, I would take Mauigoa over Vega. And that's more specific to what the Giants want to do. I think Mauigoa, I would probably project him as a better run blocker than Vega at this point. And having that flexibility, I love Andrew Thomas. I've been a big Andrew Thomas fan. You can't really bet on him staying healthy the full year. And so I think you probably need someone that can play. I haven't lost faith in Marcus Bowe, but they're looking for more road grading type of offensive lineman, and Bowe certainly is not that. But in any case, I think I wouldn't complain with either. But I think the Giants might be interested in that guard tackle versatility.
It's going to be an interesting discussion. Last two, and then I think we'll start moving more quickly. I think these top guys deserve more discussion. But for us, the last two of our kind of our blue area.
Yeah.
We had Arvell Reese at 6. I don't think there's much to say here. Brugler has him 1. It's not that we don't think he's great. I think we discussed why we like the other guys. I think with Reese, you need to have, if you want to maximize his value, you've got to have you have to have a plan to understand what he is, the way Matt Patricia did. He is a throwback Sam linebacker. He's not an edge rusher. He's not a linebacker purely. He's a Carl Banks prototype Sam linebacker. He's a throwback. And that, I mean, lo and behold, the Belichick disciple, used him that way, right? I mean, I don't think that's surprising. You're not going to maximally get what you can out of him unless you're in that system. But he is probably the best athlete, like most violent, most projectable player in this class with pass rush upside. I agree with you fully. He's a linebacker that can rush the passer. He can do so much. I actually think he's quite decent in coverage. You don't see a lot of it. They didn't use him that way, but when he did do it, he has the fluidity and the speed to do it. I don't see any real weakness in his game. I do think he's a little bit more of a better fitted correctly to the right team, kind of player, so I personally had him a little bit lower just because of that. And then Jeremiah Love, I had him actually. I'm not gonna out Monty, but let's just say I had him a lot higher than this overall ranking we landed on. But we agree with what you said, right? I agree with what you said. I think Jeremiah Love is clearly the best offensive weapon in this class. I don't think there's in fact, you said it's the biggest gap between him and the next person in his position group. I think the biggest gap in this class is between him and the next offensive playmaker, period. I don't think there's a single offensive playmaker in this class that even remotely approaches Jeremiah. He's an impact player. Plug and play, he becomes the centerpiece of your offense as a playmaker no matter where he goes, without doubt. You said fantasy football. He is probably an easy 1,800 to 2,000 yard, total yards from scrimmage guy. I would bet that an average season for Jeremiah Love is going to be something like 12 to 1,300 yards on the ground, 500 to 700 yards in the air, year after year, tons of touchdowns, tons of receptions. He's going to be a production machine. The end, right? And I know Giant fans have a lot of PTSD from Saquon. Look, he's not my first choice to take. I don't think any one of us would take him as our top choice, if we had other people there.
No.
But I don't think if we select him at 5, I don't think it should be like meltdown time for Giant fans. I think what you're doing is you're banking on a superior talent playmaker. And I think you can see the vision if you take him.
Yeah. And I agree with you in the sense that I've said it before, like, I don't think this is comparable to Saquon at all. And I don't mind saying where I had him. I had Jeremiah Love at 12 on my board. And I've said it. I don't see him as a blue chipper. I think he's a very good running back prospect. The prospect I've consistently compared him to is Breece Hall. Breece Hall I really, really liked coming out of school. I mean, he was highly productive at Iowa State. This is a guy who ran a 4.39. He jumped 40 inches. He was similar size. I think there's a lot of comparisons to that breakaway speed, especially before Breece Hall got hurt in the NFL. He was very, very good his rookie year. I think that when I watch Jeremiah Love against some of these better teams who could get more of a push, I saw some of the stuff I've seen with it's this in the great comparison, but like with Saquon when he was on this team, where it's just like it became an all or nothing type situation where if he couldn't get the push in front of him, then he didn't get anything. And that Notre Dame played a lot of lower competition this year after the first 2 games, and that's where his production really took off. And it's not to say that he's not a great player. I just think he's definitely behind the Bijan for me. He's definitely behind the Saquon for me. He is behind the Ashton Genty for me. He's in, the next tier. He's in the Travis Etienne's, the Breece Halls, the Najee Harris's, the Jonathan Taylor's. That's the tier I think for me as a prospect.
Yeah, I think we just disagree on that. That's all. And that's fine. I think, I think how you view him as a player affects how you view his value in the draft stock in the top 10, obviously. So, and I think if you view him from the standpoint of impact, I understand the whole, we got our guys. We all love Cam Scatteraboo, and Tyrone Tracy's perfectly serviceable. I just think that, you don't draft guys this high worried about the guys behind them. You know,
Oh, yeah.
you just, you know, and
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
it's just not, it's
Right.
not a thing,
Correct.
right? These are different level prospects.
I've said it. I would take Bijan Robinson. I'm okay. I just don't see Jeremiah Love at that level.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Which is why he barely made our top tier, even though I had him higher. But, I mean,
He's not
that's it. But we knew we were going to have this discussion, right? Like Monty doesn't think he's a blue chipper. I do.
Yeah.
I argued. I said we got to keep him a blue chipper, but I can accept him being on the bottom of our blue chip list. But either way,
neither of us graded him that high. We both gave him a 3.5 when we went through him initially.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I just I think again when we watch these guys and grade them, and we go back and you watch more, and then you look at testing data. You know, the testing data matters. Athleticism testing, all that, the measurables,
and we're not
slaves. Matter.
And we're not slaves to our system. It helps guide us, helps try to beat some inherent biases, and we look at it, but at the same time, there's types of players, there's type of impacts that can't get necessarily captured in our grading system.
Yeah. All right. Why don't we do our next tier, and then KSI, why don't we go through these a little bit quicker, because I think there's some fun stuff here, but why don't you point to we'll do ours and then you do yours. But so the next tier, Monty, we had 8 through 16. So this is analogous to your tier. This is sort of like our first round guys, and we cut it off at about 16. And what will stand out to everybody on our board that's different than a lot of people is we have Fernando Mendoza down at 16. And I think again we're not including positional value too much into this. He's a good player. I think he's definitely a first round prospect. I think he's very system dependent. I do think he has to go to a very specific type of system to find NFL success. He's very well coached. I have no qualms with Fernando Mendoza at all. I think he's a very, very high floor quarterback prospect. But I don't know, like he's going to the right system with Kubiak, obviously.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's the kind of quarterback that I would have higher. And granted, we've had some bot jobs at quarterback, so I'm not gonna say we know a ton about this stuff. I think it's the hardest position to actually grade and project. But but I will just say that I just didn't view him as as good as some of these other guys. I think he's a first round prospect. I didn't think he was like a top 10 type prospect.
And to be fair, Sal, this is where we've had almost every one of our quarterback prospects who weren't Drake May, Caleb Williams. We had JJ in this tier. We have Jaden Daniels in this tier. We had Cam Ward in this tier. All of them were in the 10 to
teens.
16 range.
But if you look at what's fun about our list, I would say here, I enjoyed it. We have Carnell Tate. I don't think we disagree here. He's on our list. He was 8th. We just didn't have him in the
KSI.
You were at 10, I think, right?
He's 15. If we want,
you're 15. Okay, that's interesting. So do you want to talk about Carnell Tate and why you have him 15? We have him the same tier. We had him a little higher than you, but why don't you talk about him, KSI?
Yeah. I think I want to talk about Carnell Tate and also talk about Makai Lemon and Jordan Tyson.
Yeah. I think because we all have him the same.
Talk about the receiver. So
absolutely.
I think what ended up being so fun about this is it's kind of what you're looking for. If you're looking for a Z, you're gonna take Carnell Tate. If you're looking for an X, you're gonna take Jordan Tyson. If you're looking for a Y, you're gonna take Makai Lemon. I have them very close. They're just different in my eyes. Jordan Tyson. Now, this is gonna sound a little controversial, but Jordan Tyson, when I watched him, I saw flashes of Odell Beckham. And it's these very short in-breaking routes that he took. I think I can point to Baylor was a very good example. That where he would just take it to the house. He has underrated speed, and the biggest thing is I think he's the best player versus man coverage, I think, in this draft. I saw that. I mean, he fucks man coverage up. I think he had a 3.44 yards per route run versus man coverage, which is best in the class. And I think what really stood out about him was, Sam Levitt is not necessarily the most mobile quarterback, but he gets out of the pocket as play breaks down pretty frequently, and you always see Jordan Tyson open. He makes himself available. He cuts off his route. I think he is very intelligent in the way that he runs his routes. And I don't think that you're going to find, I think maybe Mekhi Lemon might be the only person that paces better than Jordan Tyson does in terms of his routes. And so I kind of really fell in love with Jordan Tyson. I totally understand the injury concerns, and I know there's a lot of talk of him falling into the second round. If he fell into the second round, it would be because his hamstrings are made of baloney. Like that's the only way that he falls in the second round for me. Mekhi Lemon, I think, in a similar vein, I think he fucks up zone. And actually, he's the only receiver with an over 3.0 yards per out run versus man and zone. I think he is insane in terms of routing up corners and selling his routes. People compare him to Amon-Ra, and that's like very, very lofty praise in the way that he runs his routes. I mean, I can't disagree with that. I mean, he was probably the most fun to watch for me out of the three. And then Carnell Tate, I'm probably a little lower on him than the vast majority of people. When I saw him, I really saw Rome Odunze. Like I feel like they're very, very comparable prospects. The big concern, and I totally, I mean, for Tate's length, he's a very, very smooth route runner. He's got great hips he's very, very smooth. And his contested catch ability is probably what makes everybody, drool over him. I do question his long speed, and it does take him some time to get up to speed. And if you're drafting a Z, I typically like my Z receivers to be the fastest guys on the field. I also, and this is going to be a little controversial, despite that contested catch ability, I feel like sometimes he plays a little soft. He plays a little soft. A lot of the coverages that were going his way were against number 2 wide receivers because, of course, I mean, there's Jeremiah Smith on the other side. And there were times where he wasn't throwing the ball because he didn't box out corners well enough. I think with when you compare him to Rome Odunze had this violence about him at the catch point that Tate flashes sometimes, but it's not consistent. That being said, I mean, he's, I think, the most polished as far as the overall package goes. So I can certainly see where people like him, and he catches everything. So I still have him as a first round pick, but that's kind of where my thoughts go on Carnell Tate. I'm a little bit lower on him than everybody else.
I can't blame you. We graded him the highest of the three when we did it. And a lot of it just came down to like we were just true to our grading system, which, if you follow the show, like we base it off the whole Bill Walsh guide of how to, and so we try to stay true to that. And we were like, okay, you can have the eye test of like, I just like this guy more. And then do the grading and be like, actually, this guy graded higher. If we, so there's we're trying to incorporate some objectivity in all of this. I will be honest, if Jordan Tyson could stay on the field and not have enormous like recurrent injuries in his lower soft tissue, I don't think there'd be much doubt that he'd be a blue chip player in this draft. I have very little doubt that he would have, he would be viewed as a consensus top 10 pick, but he isn't. He's hurt a lot, and his hamstrings have been a problem. He's got torn ACL, multiple hamstring injuries, both legs. Did not have the best pre-draft process. Wasn't able to compete a lot.
No, he did not.
And I think this it matters, right? Like another guy who's in this area was hurt all year, and he ran, and that changed the way people perceived his stock. So I can't ignore those things. I mean, this is kind of what happened to Will Johnson. Right. And everybody can say now, like, oh, teams are so stupid, they let Will Johnson fall. But, your job is on the line as an NFL GM, and if you take a guy who's got like medical red flags all over their file, you take them in the first round and they're hurt, like that's the kind of thing that gets people fired, right? And I think there's a reason why teams are leery. You saw Jeremiah's reaction to Tyson when he was talking to Minnick Himes. Like, he knows something, he knows something's up. He knows there's something in those medicals that everybody knows that is a red flag.
Yep.
Doesn't mean he's going to be hurt. He could never miss a game in the NFL, but until draft night, this is an issue, and I think that's kind of the big thing with him. But otherwise, I largely agree with your assessment. I think it's kind of pick your flavor with these guys.
I agree. Yeah, I think Tate just ended up being the highest for us because he just kind of felt like the cleanest. He graded high everywhere. He's a very reliable guy. Mekhi Lemon does a lot of things that matter well. Yeah, and then Jordan Tyson, you had to knock him a little bit for the injury, and yeah, I mean, there's some stuff about him. I think that Tyson was going to knock. Like, he's not the best in like contested situations. You can see him get out physical at times. Like, I wish he was a little bit better. Like, he's good. You can take a slant and go, but like breaking tackles and being like a weapon after the catch, I think he'd get better. But same with Tate. Tate doesn't really do that either.
The only other things I think worth discussing here outside of the receivers for us, like a couple of things that I think are kind of fun. We obviously have Bailey a lot lower than most people do. That doesn't mean we don't think he's a good player. I wonder, he's one of those guys where I watch it and I'm like, where would he stack up in a regular class? Like, what does he do that makes me think he would be a blue chipper in another class? I'm not so, he's a good player. I don't know is he an elite player? I don't know if I can say that. I don't see that necessarily. I have nothing bad about his game to say. I just don't, I just wonder about that part.
Yeah, I mean, I have some concerns with him as a run defender. But yeah, I mean, I think you comped him to Brian Burns, and I do like that comp. I think a solid comp. But you look back at that class, and I liked Brian Burns a lot, but I didn't look at Brian Burns as a blue chipper in that class, and that's kind of where I am.
He went one pick before Dex. He went 16th overall, right? If I recall correctly.
He went 16th.
And I think that's right. That's kind of where you thought he would go, right? Like, he was not he wasn't Nick Bosa, right? Like, he wasn't in that tier. He wasn't Josh
Absolutely.
Allen, right?
No, I think that's completely fair.
Yeah. I don't think there is a draft where I would see myself letting him fall past 20. Like, I think but to me, he's falling outside of the top 10 in better draft classes. That's kind of where I see him.
And that's all it is. It's not a knock on the player. It's just, relative valuation. Our corners, Monty, I think we have a very, very different view of the corner class than most people do.
I mean, KSXI also had Avion Terrell in the same tier as these guys, just like us, which was really interesting.
So we're way, way higher, both of us, on Avion Terrell than I think most people are. Yeah. He was our CB1, when we did our evaluations, and we included Jermod McCoy's 2024 tape, and still kind of came away with that conclusion. Even though McCoy's tape, on block is probably better tape itself. Terrell is a guy. I mean, I end up knocking him a little bit because to me the pre-draft process does matter, and unfortunately he was hurt. He ran a 4.6 something at his pro day, and he ran with a bad hamstring. And people are like, oh my god, he's slow. He's a 4.6. No, he ran a 4.39 last year. This is not a 4.6 athlete. If you watch his tape, there's not a 4. It's like a 4.3, 4.4.
He's a track star,
right? It's people who think he's slow are out of their minds. He had a hamstring, but he had a hamstring, so it matters a little bit. I just think we watched him, dude. I don't know what you thought. I saw he's like a Devin Witherspoon type prototype of a player, right? Like, I think probably somebody who profiles at an elite level at nickel, but can definitely play on the outside, kind of does it all, plays line of scrimmage, physical, takes the football away both by causing fumbles, by baiting quarterbacks and trail, and then going and getting the football in the air. Like, he just does all the stuff that I think makes for some of the best corners in the NFL. So I want to hear your thoughts on him.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just read just a little bit from my notes for all three. So Avion Terrell, what I had written was he's got a little bit of a slight build, but he's fiery. he bitches people every game. You know, it doesn't matter if it's I think I saw him knocking down running backs, knocking down linemen, let alone wide receivers. Um, Quick trigger when he's playing in zone. My one question with him is because of his build, I have some questions about contested catch situations. Like, I don't know if I would trust him fully against someone like AJ Brown. That was really my only question. But obviously, I liked him enough to put him as a first round corner. I will say so. Jermod McCoy, most instinctual cornerback in the draft. Watch him versus 2024 Alabama. He absolutely destroyed them. I think he has some of the best recovery in the draft. Long speed is a plus. I think he is scheme versatile in zone schemes and man schemes. I think he's adequate as a press corner. Last year, he was demonic in the red zone. I think he had 3 interceptions in the red zone.
That Alabama game, that corner where he baited Jalen Milroe into that throw, and he just Did you take that one to the house, or he drove, or he picked it off and went down like 40 yards down the field or something like that? But it was beautiful.
I have questions about him staying in phase against faster corners. That's really the only thing I had. My comp for him was the comp that some other people are giving to him, which is Derek Stingley, and I think that fits beautifully for him. And with Jermod McCoy, I mean, his 24 based just off 2024, he would be fighting with Caleb Downs for my number 1 overall player. Like, that's how much I loved Jermod McCoy last year. ACLs, depending on the severity for corners, it might take a year for them to get back up to speed, and there is a little bit of risk there. That's why I had him down at 14.
Yeah,
it's been a year. So I mean, let me put it this way: if the Giants decided to draft him at 5, I'm not going to be upset. I think I'd rather have Jermod McCoy than Jeremiah Love, to be honest with you. That's how much I like Jermod McCoy. Now, Mansour Delane, transfer from Virginia Tech. He had Clemson in hell this year. LSU was pretty multiple in the way that they had their corners deployed, and he was fine in all of these looks.
Mm-hmm.
Right place, right time, a lot of times, smooth hips. I have questions about his length. That's really the big thing, and a little similar to Avion Terrell. I have him, my pro comp for him is like Denzel Ward light for Mansour Delane.
that's interesting.
So, I mean, I have Delane as my top corner just because McCoy was injured. But I don't have Terrell really that far off from them. And I don't disagree with anything that you guys have said about Terrell.
I think Delane is the safest of the 3. Right. I think that's clear. Like,
yes,
he's the Carnell Tate of the corners.
He is the Carnell Tate of the corners. He has no real weakness in his game.
Mm-hmm.
He's technically superior to most corners. He doesn't make mistakes. He's a professional. I think he's a plug and play. You want to play zone, he can play zone. You want to play man, he can play man. He's not going to take a lot of penalties. He's just very well coached and sound. What he doesn't have necessarily are like some of those physical gifts, I think, that you sometimes look for at the top of the draft. Doesn't matter. I don't know. But I don't think you'd be sorry taking Mansour Delane. I think you're taking him and you're saying, well, that's my starting corner for the next 5-6 years. I think Denzel Ward's a pretty good comp. I've comped him to like guys like Jair Alexander before he developed CTE or whatever he developed, right? Like, I mean, Alexander was that guy, right? He was like that technically sound. You never heard his name, just game in, game out. He did his job, and was, one of the better corners in the NFL, and it wasn't anything fancy. It was just technically sound. It made life difficult for opposing offenses, and I see Delane being the same. So I don't think you can go wrong with any of these three. Again, I just think it's a little different than like the wide receivers. Wide receivers pick your flavor. I think in this case, I think it's what are you valuing in terms of how do you view the injuries and things like that. So I think all things equal, if all three were totally healthy, odds are I think McCoy would be the guy who goes at the top of the draft, and then you'd see. But would I be upset if the Giants came away with any three of them at somewhere in the first round? No, I think these are good corners.
Yeah, just to add on, just my thoughts on the three real quick. I just think Terrell's the best football player. To me, when I just look at football players, that is Avion Terrell. I think he does everything. I love the way he plays football. He was just an immediate draft crush for me. He immediately became my guy the second I watched him. I just love the way he plays football, and he's so good. It comes naturally to him.
He was the Arvell Reese of the corners. He's the guy he's the one who pops on tape when you watch him.
Mm-hmm. And then I'll say I watched Jermod McCoy a little bit more. When I watched him a little bit more, I was very impressed, but I did come away with some concerns when they ran zone. I thought he was a fantastic man corner, but I saw him get mixed up with responsibilities that time. They didn't do it a lot. Tennessee ran a shit ton of man coverage, but I did see some issues where it just felt like he didn't know where to go at times and kind of got tricked up by the offense. I'll say my comparison when I started thinking about more for Jermod McCoy is a guy I really liked. He reminds me a little bit of Quinyon Mitchell. I think Quinyon Mitchell was a guy who was just that press man corner. And people overthought him a little bit. They talked about some of that zone stuff, and it's but again, just focus on what this guy can do, and this guy can lock a guy
down. Let's, in the interest of time, gentlemen, if you don't mind, I'll push it along a little bit. I think we've gone through most of these guys here. KSI, did you have anybody else in this year you want to just go over quickly, but before we move to the next year, which is really the first, second round graded guys?
Not really.
Okay. Why don't we pull up KSI's list just so everybody can get a refresher here on where he has his first, second round guys, and we'll just read off our list of names after he goes through his, and I think we can just discuss them. You got his list up there?
Yeah, pulling it up now.
And how about I do this? I'll just read off our guys, and then you go through your guys. I'll just read them off real quickly. So our first, second round grades went from 17 to 26. I don't know. I don't remember how many you had. You went from 18 to 30. So something similar.
18 to 30.
Yep. So here are our 17 to 26. Here's our names. Dylan Tiedemann at 17. Akeem Mesidor at 18. CJ Allen at 19. Kenyon Sadiq at 20. Emmanuel McNeil Warren at 21. Denzel Boston at 22. TJ Parker 23. Colton Hood at 24. Peter Woods at 25. And Blake Miller at 26.
Yeah, I mean, so we have a lot of similar players. A few that I have in there that you guys don't, and a couple that I think I would disagree with. I think the first thing that I kind of want to talk about is some of the offensive linemen, and I'm going to group together a big bunch, and they're not all similar players, but they have this similar vibe, right? And that's Spencer Fano, Monroe Freeling, Max, I can't ever pronounce the last name, Ianachor, and Caleb Lomu. And these are all guys who are very, very raw, very raw, but supremely athletically gifted tackles. And we kind of talked about this a little bit, right? Like, there comes a time where you put on the film, and if they're good, they're good, right? You can't really put too much stock in just pure athleticism. But out of those, two guys that I think stood out to me a little bit more are Monroe Freeling and Spencer Fano. Spencer Fano I actually have as a first round pick because I think he's a little bit more polished than the rest of those guys. Monroe Freeling, if you looked at him in 2024, he was ass. He was like, I thought he would be undraftable. And I mean, he still wasn't perfect this year, but I think when you look at, if I were to give like a superlative for most improved player from 2024 to 2025, I would put Monroe Freeling. I mean, he still waist bends quite a bit. He still has misses in pass protection, but I think overall, he has an insane ceiling. D-Kit saying he has massive bust potential. All these guys that I mentioned do, because they are not. None of these guys are day one players, right? So that's. I mean, I don't really have much more to say about any of these guys, except I think, we can probably pencil in Caleb Lomu or Max Iannaccia for Philly's first round pick this year as a Lane Johnson replacement. I know, especially Max. Max, he actually shut down David Bailey and Romello Height, which was very, very impressive. I guess it depends on if Jeff Stoutland is still in the good graces in Philadelphia. Yeah. But they would be scary with good coaching. The other two players that I wanted to talk about in this group with you guys is switching gears a little bit, and it's the safeties, Dylan Kleineman and EMW. I have them very similarly rated. I think I'm lower on Dylan T than the vast majority of consensus. Brett Coleman put out a tweet basically saying, "Oh, if you depending on what you're looking for, you have either Caleb Downs or Dylan T." And I wanted to respond asking him what he was smoking. They're not in the same stratosphere.
No.
There's a gap.
Yeah. I'm a little bit down. I mean, like, so EMW and Dylan T are very, very different, right? EMW is like a downhill missile. Plays that robber position a lot. He's gonna mug you in the box. Watch him against Western Michigan, and he just fucks shit up. But he's also really, I think he's really playable in zone. You don't want him in man. He's tall, and I think he has trouble changing direction a lot. So I don't think you want him as like a nickel. But that's not his game. But as an enforcer, I think EMWs could be worthy of a first-round pick. And then Dylan T is more of that traditional center fielder type. The concern I have with Dylan T is he has some really poor angles in run defense. Like, it reminded me of Tyler Nubin a little bit. Not nearly to the degree that Tyler Nubin had. And then when you compare him to Caleb Downs and the way Caleb Downs pulls the trigger is super decisive. I did not see that with Tyneman. And that does concern me because the safety is the last line of defense, right? He's a good tackler, but versus the run, scared me a little bit. You don't have to pigeonhole him as a center fielder, though. I saw him more in two high shells, but he could be that. He could be that guy. He does position himself really well. I didn't really see much of him in Purdue when he was at Purdue for the first couple of years. But I think they're both imperfect prospects, very, very different prospects. But I will say Neil Warren was very fun to watch.
Yeah. I think we have similar views on a lot of these guys, except for Freeling. I will say we're way lower on Monroe Freeling. I totally understand he's going in the first round and he's traitsed up, up the wazoo, right? He has the 35 plus inch arms and he's an athletic freak on testing, but this is a guy who really struggles at playing tackle. I think I can't get over that part of it, right?
Yeah.
He bends, he loses balance. His footwork is slow. He's fast running a 40, but his footwork out of his stance is slow. He just doesn't look comfortable playing tackle, and
his hands are all over the place.
The hands are the worst thing. He looks like a recurrent holding penalty in the NFL. It's like the best tackle.
Yeah.
He is a project. The best tackles, like always talk about this, like, because I learned this. You know, we've been doing this like 3 years now. So 3 years of, you've been doing it for 15, but you know this. Like every year you watch the tape, you get better and better at seeing the things you're looking for and the traits that matter, right? And you know, like when you're watching the hands, it's not just timing and punch and well timed with your footwork and leverage, but it's where your hands go in the chest plate, right? It's are you getting inside their chest plate with your punch?
Absolutely.
Are you jolting guys? And then what are you doing with it? Are you just pushing them away, or are you actually vice gripping them and turning them and dominating them? Joe Alt, right? They do this, by the way. Billy Shrout does this. The Notre Dame guys all do this. It's something they teach there, I think. And Joe Alt did a lot of it. Of course, obviously elite, but they clearly work on hand usage as linemen. And one thing I remember, I don't know if you remember this, Monty, talk about Joe Alt. One of the things he did, he was obviously athletically gifted, but when he got his hands on guys, he did like this wheel grip, one hand here under the armpit, the other hand here in the lower part of the chest plate, and then he would torque guys, and their body looked like it was going to snap, right? And it was rep after rep of Joe Alt using his long arms to get inside people's chest, and then make the edge rusher, whoever's rushing him, literally go through like pain and discomfort trying to rush. And it was so dominant, and you're looking for guys who can do like that or something close to it. And the Freeling, his arms are like this. He's got like pterodactyl arms, and he's all over the place. I just, I understand the upside, but
I don't like his grip strength.
I get it.
It's like I was getting James Hudson. I was getting James Hudson flashbacks watching the guy, and I'm like, oh man, this could be.
Oh
this
my
could
god!
get bad.
Oh my god!
Like,
I guess
yeah.
My big thing is, I saw so many examples of Nate Frazier running behind Freeling, getting Freeling on the move. It's just that is a thing of beauty. I will say,
great athlete in space. Running,
when it comes to offensive linemen, when it comes to offensive linemen, I think my tendency is to go more traits and just assume that everybody has a good offensive line coach, which is not true. And that's probably why I was lower on Blake Miller than you guys were. I don't remember exactly where I put him. But really my concern with Blake Miller, like I think the big thing with him is he's a tall dude. I have some serious concerns about his pad level. I think that's really, I think, what is he? He's 6'7", I think. And I consistently saw guys, even though he has, I think he has decently long arms. I don't remember exactly how long his arms are.
Yeah, he did. He had like
his wingspan is pretty big.
Yeah.
But I think that put Ruben Bain up against Blake Miller, and he's gonna have problems against leverage guys. But I will say, he was probably one of the most consistent guys on film that I saw.
There's a lot of reps.
Yes.
Yeah. 6'6"
I'm
and
interested
3/4.
in hearing about what you guys think about the defensive linemen.
Let's go through them. So you have in this category Woods, McDonald, and let's include Mesidor in the discussion, and Banks. And okay, Malachi Lawrence. Okay, where did we have these guys? I just want to see. We had some of them in here. We had Mesidor a little higher than you at 18. It's funny, we have the Miami guy higher. I think Mesidor is a pretty safe bet to be a good NFL player. He's older, but he's just really good, and he has the length, he has the measurables, he has the speed.
He just had some of the best hands that I've seen from a guy. It's because he's been doing it so long. But I went and watched him, and I'm ready to kind of knock these older edge prospects because they're so much older and bigger in these guys. And you see these fifth-year edges succeed all the time, and I'm ready to say that's the reason. But I'm watching, I'm like, this guy just doesn't let offensive linemen get their hands on him. He's just constantly countering, constantly getting off. He's a true technician. He deserves the title as a technician, in my opinion.
Right. We had Peter Woods in the same category.
I think if he was 21, he'd be green.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair.
Agreed.
But I think where we're putting him in the first, second round grade is about right for a guy who's like 25 years old. He's actually 2 months younger than Kayvon, just to give you perspective. That tells you something.
Yeah.
And you do have to ask, like, are you just whooping ass because you're a grown man going up against kids? It's anyway. But I think he's a good football player. Peter Woods, we have in the same category, a little bit lower than you. We had him at 25 overall, a little bit lower than you, but in the same category. And I think I wanted to love and defend Peter Woods all year and coming into this. First of all, I believe that the defensive players at Clemson were serious victims of a war criminal in their defensive coordinator who took over this year. And every one of their stocks went to shit, right? Their whole defense went to crap. And all of a sudden they all look like bad football players. I'm like, wait a minute. These guys were all like top 20 prospects for the year. And now they all look bad. So I think there's some of that in Peter Woods' in evaluation. But there's also like the physical change. Like he came back like looking like a superhero this year, as opposed to the fat guy he was last year, right? And it affected his power. Like I thought it actually, as the season went on, like I'm high on him. I think he's going to be a very good NFL player, but it affected his power. That's something I noticed.
I agree. And his first step, his first step is inconsistent. I mean, when it flashes, you see it. But if you don't have that first step, you, as an interior defensive lineman, you then have to rely on your power. And I completely agree with you. He got washed out way too often. I think part of my evaluation and why I have him as a top 20 player in this class, one, again, speaks to how lackluster the top end of the draft is. And two, I kind of maybe some of his 2024 tape kind of leaked into my head, because he's one of the players that I think took a step back. How about Caden McDonald? I think he's someone that I'm also quite high on. I didn't see him in the yellow for you guys when I looked. I might be mistaken.
He is not in the yellow for us.
No, he isn't.
All right. So here's our theory of the case. And we like Caden McDonald. And I think he's one of the guys that I would seriously consider taking at 37 if he's there. I don't be there, but this was we had a discussion a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you heard it. We were just doing kind of a review of defensive line prospects we've reviewed over the years. And granted, it's a relatively small sample size. It's only like 3 or 4 years of stuff. Just the 3 years we've been doing this, plus Monty and I have been kind of, doing this talking for at least 4 years. If you look at the D linemen who have translated well versus the ones who have not, who profile mostly as run defenders, which is what Caden McDonald essentially is right now, it's the guys who have the ability to push the pocket. They're the ones who tend to do well, right? Like they consistently push the pocket at the collegiate level. And then there's the guys who just stand up the pocket and they eat double teams and triple teams, and they're like a cinder block. They don't go forward. They don't go back. They do disengage. They're good in the run game, but they're not, for whatever reason, they're not driving back collegiate guards. And when you look at some of those guys, like they don't necessarily become high impact guys in the NFL, at least maybe not right away. And the guys who do tend to translate a little better are the guys who are able to drive that pocket back. And so our only criticism of Caden McDonald is, for as athletic as he is, as young as he is, as clearly strong as he is, he doesn't drive the pocket back at all. Like it's not something we saw consistently. I don't know if you saw it differently on tape, but I think he's more of like a stand up and eat blocks kind of guy.
No, I think that's a very reasonable assessment, and I do agree with that. I will say, in a few of the games, I know Penn State is one. There was another, and I can't think of it, where I did see flashes of him being able to compress the pocket a little bit. I do wonder about a lot, and this is just a general observation. I do wonder about a lot of these players on these elite defenses. How much is their film just? How much of it is us being tricked by just being surrounded by great players?
Yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes, right?
I feel like we see it's hard to tell sometimes. I feel very similarly about Lee Hunter. Although Lee Hunter, I think, has a little bit more ability to stress the pocket a little bit, but I think that
Definitely.
Caden can two gap better than Hunter can.
I agree.
Hunter's got that nice big belly, but I think McDonald can two gap a little bit better. Then that's why I have McDonald a little bit higher.
I thought
But I have
McDonald's
similar
best
questions with both guys.
I thought McDonald's best game was Indiana in the Big Ten title game, and
yeah,
but it was mostly because of his two gapping, right? I think he was a problem. Like Pat Coogan couldn't handle him, and they had to consistently double team him and chip block. Like they had to do things because he was destroying their run game. They could not run the ball because of Caden McDonald, and and they almost won the game. They probably should have won the game because of Caden McDonald, like really causing a problem on the interior. But even in that game, and we went back and watched that tape, he just never pushed the pocket back, right? I think, Monty, we did that. We watched the game together, right? Like it was a weird phenomenon. Now, the argument with him is he's 21 and it's possible, like you said, Matt Patricia knows that he's got like this stable of machines around him that can destroy the pocket and do things. And he could have simply been telling Caden McDonald, I don't need you to create a running lane. Your job is to clog up the middle, right? I don't want you doing anything other than your job is to two gap, destroy the center of their offensive line and stand there. That's something we can't tell watching the film. We don't know what their responsibilities are, right? I can only watch and tell you what I see. And that's how I'm looking at it. But if I'm a coach and a scout, I'm asking Matt Patricia, right? I'm asking him, like, did you tell him to stand there and just eat blocks and just two gap and not push forward?
Right.
I'd want to know that information.
Yeah. I think of, some of the D tackles we've had over the last few years outside of Dexter Lawrence. And, I think, you think of a guy like Dalvin, who's pretty much a pure run stopper. And I think what sets Dalvin apart from these reliable run stopping DTs is he was a pocket pusher. I think that's the difference between a great run stopping D tackle and a reliable one.
Yep.
His career is going to be fun to watch, though. But I'll tell you something. He comps a lot to his teammate from last year, Tyleik Williams, right? Who was a very similar kind of player. And he's had kind of one year, but he's kind of a marginal impact player right now. And it's only 1 year.
That is fair.
And the question is like, what is, but again, I don't watch every Detroit Lions game. I'm not sure what they're asking him to do. So I don't know. I just didn't watch games and ever notice Tyleik Williams flash, right? Like I didn't hear play after play of Tyleik Williams making plays. And so it's just a question we have. It's a running theory. I don't think there's enough data to back it up necessarily. Obviously these scouts know more than we do, but it's just something that's, if you're asking why he's not in that list, that's the reason from that yellow. Yeah. Other guys. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask him about Malachi Lawrence, because that's a guy that we have not discussed on the show yet. And it's a guy who I did a deep dive on for the first time this week. And I have some thoughts about it, but I want you to lead off what you thought of Malachi Lawrence.
So I got onto Malachi Lawrence a little late. And that was because everybody else was talking about it. I'm like, hey, what's the deal with him? And I kind of fell in love a little bit because what I look for, and you guys see this with my ranking of David Bailey, is first step and bend, first step and bend, first step and bend. And the consistency with which this dude threatens the edge with his first step is kind of unbelievable. In my notes, I have him comped to Will McDonald, the fourth, and I think that I think he's a dead ringer for that. I have some, with all of these edge guys, that smaller edge guys, right, that are first step explosive. You have concerns about run defense and setting the edge. I have more concerns with regards to him than I do, say, David Bailey, who's not perfect in that regard, and we've talked about, but he's someone where he's going to make a lot of money just being that ultra aggressive wide 9 rusher. I tend to believe the hype that he might go in the back end of round 1 or early round 2. I just think that he was really, really consistent, and that's, I think, a big deal when it comes to that, because a lot of these players have hot and cold motors. I didn't really see that with Lawrence.
What about you, Sal? What do you think of him?
Yeah, I think he's traitsy. I like the Will McDonald comp. I think these guys are. I think as long as you view them for what they are, and you take the positives, you'll be happy with him. And he fits right into that late day 1, early day 2 kind of like edge rusher. Like, I think he's largely like an bend the edge speed rusher type. And I don't expect a more well-rounded game from him necessarily.
Right.
But I think he has his impact, and that's in an important way. And that's what I saw.
Yeah.
But that actually is go ahead. What did you think of him?
I thought I saw it pretty similar, KSX. I watched him, and I kind of fell in love a little bit watching him. I got, like I said, his engine runs red hot. He's always on. He's got like that Tasmanian devil type mentality playing off the edge. I love the ability he had long arms guys and gets them off balance and kind of just tosses them. His hands are so good, so well timed. He has a good cross chop. Like, it's just, he has a lot of good technical abilities, but it comes like that. It's not like this slow maniacal play, like the slow thought out plan where I'm gonna do this, counter this. It's this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. You see offensive tackles struggling like that, and he's a fun watch.
I agree. Now you don't have we have a guy up in our yellow that you don't have till about 20 picks later, and that's TJ Parker at 23. So
yeah,
I'm curious about your thoughts about him.
Yeah, so my notes on him, let me find them real quick. Down year from 2024, which we've kind of talked about,
Clemson.
Clemson. Great edge setter. I think that he's someone that I think really set the edge really well. The get off was more inconsistent than I would have liked, and the bend wasn't great. He has violent hands, but sometimes I saw him. He was a little too streaky for me. And that's where my concern was. Like, we talked about the consistency with Lawrence. I didn't quite see that with TJ Parker. You may be right. It may just be that everything that he may just not have been asked to really threaten the edge the way that some of these other guys are just pin your ears back and go. But I think, in certain third down situations, I didn't see what I wanted to see from him. Not to the degree that I thought I would see the progression from 2024. And I think that sort of bled into where I had him.
I think he's very much like the polar opposite of Malachi Lawrence in many ways.
Yeah.
That is very fair.
Yeah. He profiles a lot to me like Montez Sweat. Very similar kind of players, right? Edge, he's just good, right? He's kind of good at everything. He can put his hand in the dirt and be a true defensive end. He can even slide a little bit more to the interior, shade the 4-eye. He can be a stand-up edge on the outside. He's very good against the run. He's solid against the pass. He has some pass rush arsenal, doesn't have a ton, but I don't think he lacks the true first step explosiveness to be like this elite edge rusher. I think he's an edge 2. I think he's an edge 2 on a defensive line where you have a true edge 1 who's going to threaten the quarterback play after play, right? I think, but he's the guy, and he's actually kind of like how what he's kind of what Kayvon is becoming, right? Like, I think those types of players, Kayvon now, not necessarily what he projected as in college, but what he has become now. Montez Sweat, like, these are good football players, Trevon Walker, like there's a prototype, right? Like these guys are physical, strong edges. They're not going to ever be elite pass rushers, but they're good players. They're edge twos. They have a different price point when they get paid than the true like pass rushing elite guys, but they're valuable players. They're good. And the question is, where do you take a guy like this? And I think this is sort of where you take him, right? Like end of first round, top of the second round, somewhere in there. But I like him as a player. I think he's a pretty sturdy player. If you're taking him to think he's going to be edge one, I think you'll be disappointed.
It's a mistake. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He's very close to like the edge of that second round, the first second round guy for me.
Yeah.
I like what all of you guys said. I pretty much agree with everything you guys said. I had a lot of the same notes as you, Ksixi. Like I specifically said like his his like get off. He had really slow reaction time off the snap, inconsistent jumps, limits his first step, close stuff. Completely agree. But yeah, I think you look at him, you see a guy who's just day one is going to be a very good run stopping edge setter. And I saw a guy who had, this athleticism to cross the offensive line's face, and you can put him on twists and stunts, and it's hard to handle these guys. I thought he was a really good fluid player. I thought he displayed good bend. I don't think it's there yet as a pass rusher, but I think that there is a lot to work with.
All right. I think that's looking at your list here. The only other guy, well, okay, there's a couple of guys you want to talk about here. Like, so you have also in this list, we should quickly talk about, we talked about corners already. You have Colton Hood here. You want to give him like your quick spiel on Colton Hood? I mean, I think we have him a little bit lower, but not too far off.
Colton Hood is what I think Tay Banks should be. I think he has similar weaknesses in the run game, not to the degree that the degree that Banks has, but when you look at his profile, I mean, I think it's unfair to say he didn't miss a beat when Jermon McCoy went down, but I think he was a pretty adequate replacement for him. I think he excelled in press, didn't really do that well in those few zone looks that Tennessee ran, but I mean Tennessee ran mostly man. And I think that he is just a solid overall man cover corner, press man corner cover, that can sometimes give up some stuff in the run. So kind of like Tay Banks, but maybe a little bit more interested in playing football than Tay.
Yeah, no,
if I could describe him in 2 words, it would just be hip pocket. That's where he is the entire entire game. He's sitting there.
He's traitsed up, he's very athletic. All right, and then just quickly, we have CJ Allen here. You have CJ Allen here, a little bit lower than us, but I think he's gotten a little bit of a bad rap. Personally, I think his pre-draft process has not been great.
Yeah,
like he's not looking super athletic. He looks stiff as a surfboard in his pro day, which did not help him.
Right.
But I don't know what you feel like. I didn't see him play like that on tape.
No. So my pro comp for him was Nick Bolton. He is I think he's just like a very, very solid. There's no outstanding traits about CJ Allen, but there's really not a ton of weaknesses. He destroyed Tennessee. I think that was probably his best game. He's the green dot guy, lined up guys for Georgia. Sideline to sideline range for on some of these outside runs that these running backs had. He was always around the ball. Very good as a gap shooter, as a blitzer, or even a run blitzer. I didn't really love what I saw in man coverage. I think he's great in zone, but in man coverage, probably not the best place to put him. That's like my short sort of spiel. I think he was a pretty straightforward evaluation.
Yep, I agree with all that.
I agree with all of it too. The one thing I'll just add on to it is, I look at him and I think of the linebackers that have come out over the last 4 or 5 years, and I compare CJ Allen, and I just keep coming back to him. Like, CJ Allen would be one of my favorite linebackers every single one of these classes. So I just think he's a good football player, and obviously the Sonny Styles of the world are always going to be above him, but not many classes have a Sonny Styles, and to me, he's the linebacker. He's competing for linebacker 1 in almost all of these last 4 or 5 classes. So I'm a fan.
Let's take the receivers on block real quick here. The only receiver we had in this category, I guess we can include 2 people. We had Kenyon Sadiq in this category. You had him a little bit higher, but a tick higher. And we had Denzel Boston, and you have Ksixi Concepcion. And I think it's so. Let's leave. I would just leave Kenyon Sadiq alone because that's a whole discussion of itself. Like athletic, trade up, tight end, and that's that.
And Ksixi Concepcion he's one spot out of an arbitrary spot where we're still trying to figure out the tier. So you could honestly put him in this tier for us. He's right there.
Right. So let's talk about Concepcion and Boston, because I think they're kind of in a little group of their own. Yeah. And I guess you can throw Omar Cooper in there in terms of draft purposes. I don't know if we view him as highly as other people do, but go right ahead.
I don't really like Denzel Boston. I think I had a very similar feeling to Keon Coleman coming out. Now, Keon Coleman coming out, very different player than what people think of him now, right? Like Keon Coleman's was a good prospect. I don't think anybody was upset at where he went. But I was always lower on Keon Coleman, and I think Denzel Boston is kind of in the same mold. He obviously, a very good contested catch, big bodied wide receiver. But I mean, there are times where he was soft. Like, I don't know if you remember seeing, I think it was D'Angelo Pons, like a 5'9" corner, just absolutely obliterating him. And, I think that kind of just stuck in my head. And I wanted to see more athleticism out of him, but he comes off kind of like a plotter to me. Ksixi Concepcion is probably the most explosive wide receiver in this draft for me. I think he's super twitchy. My notes have him comparable to Jamison Williams. In terms of just his speed in and out of breaks, I think he's great as a gadget player. The 2 big things with him in terms of the negatives is obviously the drops, right? The drops are a huge concern. He has so many concentration drops. I think, whereas I think Jordan Tyson had great pacing on his routes and had a really good feel, Ksixi Concepcion is like 1 speed and 1 speed only. And that's just not going to cut it at the NFL level if you want to be like an alpha wide receiver. And so, but I think that just his ability to just make people miss before the catch and shake coverage is what had me, really interested in him. The drops do scare me, having watched Darius Slayton for so many years and Evan Ingram, but I really do like him.
I think we both like him also. I mean, there's nothing else to say. I mean, he's got to clean up the drops. I don't know if he can clean up the drops, but everything else he does really well. Explosive, off the snap. I mean, his release packages are phenomenal. Like, he really puts guys in a blender right away.
Yeah, though I guess the one thing I'll say is, I mean, I personally didn't necessarily see a twitched up athlete, but I necessarily think that matters either. Regardless, I didn't think it showed up in a tape in a negative way. I just didn't see it in the sense I saw like a guy like Jordan Tyson, for example. But I think that he was, you could argue he's the best, best route runner in this class. He's the best, best release package in this class. Like, he's phenomenal at that. Before we move off it real quick, I just wanted to run over a couple numbers. I was telling Sal about this earlier today. I have the reception perception subscription, and Matt Harmon does a great job. And this year they kind of put it all together in a table, and I was just kind of interested to see, who did the best in that. And the guys are talking about number 2 and number 3 here were Denzel Boston and Ksixi Concepcion across the 4 categories that I went across here. We had one where it was just like how they did in their routes, their success rate there, and Ksixi and Denzel Boston were both top 3 there. You can look at like them versus like man and zone success rate, and they were right there, top 3, both of them. And there are some them after the catch. Both of them were very successful after the catch. And then the last one was just catch rate and drop rate. I think, there are some guys that were higher in those last two, but like they were right there with all of them. And the ones that really mattered to me to look at, they were just phenomenal. I'll share it with you later what I kind of saw here. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, of course.
But Denzel Boston, he's the guy who I really liked. Guy I liked immediately after watching him. And Ksixi Concepcion, a guy who I've learned, who I liked, but I've learned to like more as the process went on. That just kind of more solidified it to me. And I think they're going to be good players next level.
So we're pushing almost 2 hours, and I can keep going. I want to be respectful of your time and the people who are watching us, but in the interest of time, I was wondering if you guys are okay with us kind of just ripping through our list until at least pick 50, because I think for where the Giants are drafting for the first two picks, and we can leave we'll share the list for everybody so you can kind of go over them. I don't think we're going to get a chance to do a deep dive on all tiers going up to 100, but at least through like the top 50. Let's take a look at what's left. I mean, you have Lee Hunter. You have Lee Hunter at 31, Emmanuel Pregnon at 32, Jacob Rodriguez 33, Keldrick Falk at 34, who's probably going to go higher. I don't agree with it, but he probably will. You mentioned Boston and Cooper. I think you kind of lumped them together, so you probably have similar grades on those two.
Yeah.
Christian Miller, Chase Basantis, D'Angelo Pons, Jennings Dunker, who you have a lot higher, I think, than I did. Max Lianacor, Cassius Howell, and TJ Parker. I like him too, but
I had similar ranges, but I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah. And what we had from 27 to where did we get up to on your list there? We got to about, did we get to 50? No, we got to like there. Yeah, I mean, we got oh no, there's more. So Cassius Howell, TJ Parker, Chris Brazel, Ty Simpson, you had at 45.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see this area down here. There you go.
our Mason Thomas at 46. Blake Miller, we talked about. Keontae Scott at 48. I like him. I think Brugler had him listed as a safety. Jeremy Bernard at 49. Chris Bell, 50. Eli Stowers, Brandon Cisse, Caden Proctor, AJ Halsey, and Keelan Rutledge at 55 to round it out. And what we had in that same grouping up to about 55, I'll read it off to you. Concepcion at 27. D'Angelo Pons was our 28th ranked player.
Yep.
Eldrick Falk at 29. Lee Hunter at 30. Chris Johnson at 31. Caden Proctor at 32. Caden McDonald at 33. Jacob Rodriguez, 34. Monroe Freeling was 35 for us. Caleb Lomu was 36 for us. Malachi Lawrence was 37. You have these three a lot higher. Eli Stowers was 38. Jake Galde, 39. Omar Cooper was 40. So around where you had him. Caleb Banks, we had at 41. Probably could be higher, but the injuries, you can't ignore it. Yeah. Zion Young at 42. Max Lianacor at 43. Keelan Rutledge, we had a little higher at 44. Brandon Cisse at 45. Cassius Howell at 46. Keontae Scott, we had at 47. Anthony Hill at 48. Chase Basantis 49. And Jadarian Price at 50. We had Pregnon at 51. Halsey at 52. Antonio Williams at 53. R. Mason Thomas at 54, and Gabe Jackas at 55. So I know I just listed a bunch of names, but let's talk about like that grouping, because I think that's the grouping from which we're probably selecting our second round pick unless somebody falls from the previous tier.
I will say, out of all, so in the entire draft, and I know D-Kit's going to say Miami bias, my favorite player, not the best player, but my favorite player is Keontae Scott.
Yeah.
My notes, I have him comped to Brian Branch. I think he is like, I am so very excited. He plays with his hair on fire. Yeah. He has almost as quick a trigger in zone coverage as Caleb Downs. I think he is one of the best blitzing corners in this draft. The only reason why I have him at 48 is age. That's and age matters for corner.
He's 25.
Yeah. So that is my and so that does play a part. And but he's someone that I would not be sad about drafting at 37. That being said, do we still believe in Andrew Phillips? Maybe a little bit. I don't know. But he's someone that I loved watching. He was my favorite. He was my favorite watch of any player. Another player that I wanted to talk about is Chris Bell. So he's one of my asterisks that I forgot to put an asterisk on because of the ACL injury. I mean, I would have probably, if he were healthy, I would have moved him up a tier or two. I mean, I see AJ Brown with Chris Bell. With Chris Bell.
I think we're on that.
We're very different on Chris Bell. We hated Chris Bell.
I know how you guys feel about Chris Bell, but I mean, he's someone that I think has very good body control. I think that he has the potential to be one of the best contested catch players. But I know how you guys feel about Chris Bell.
It's good to get our opinions on here.
And then the last person I kind of wanted to mention in this group is Caden Proctor. I did not like Caden Proctor, and I'm not gonna invoke the Evan Neal bat signal with Caden Proctor, but I think just the foot speed that he has is so inconsistent. People have these backhanded compliments with Caden Proctor, like, for this guy's size, his foot speed is great. But the thing is, like, you can't have, if you're going to be a starting caliber tackle in the NFL, you can't have qualifiers. Like, I don't give a shit what his size is. Like, he either has good foot speed or he doesn't. And he tends to overset a lot against speed rushers. That tells me that he is uncomfortable. And for good reason. Like, I mean, I know he got better as the year went on, but boy, that Florida State game, if you want to see Caden Proctor, like, Florida State game was bad. It was bad. And just in general, we talk about how our thoughts evolve over time, with the draft. I've kind of come off these really big Planet Theory tackles. Because there is a longevity argument against all of them, like, without fail. And so I'm not a big Caden Proctor guy.
I'm on a personal note, I'm friends with a former NFL, like a long-term NFL offensive lineman. Mm-hmm. He's in his mid-30s now. He was an O-line coach for a few years. He still is, actually.
Mark Colombo?
No. I'll tell you off air. But he stopped his playing days, 5 years ago or so. You couldn't tell that he was an offensive lineman now because he's just a tall guy, right? These guys all lose a shit ton of weight, and he's got knee problems, and he was a big guy when he played. And he told me himself, he's like, from the age of, like, Pee Wee football onward, he's like, I was massive, and he's like, the human body is just not meant to carry this size, and it takes a beating on you. So I kind of agree with you on the Planet Theory guys. I want to get into some position groups, but I will defend Caden Proctor in this way. And I didn't think I'd be the one ever defending Caden Proctor because I thought he was ass when I watched him as a tackle. But
he's a great tight end.
He's very athletic, which helps. He was the one guy that I saw come in shorter than people thought, and I thought, oh, this is a good thing. Came in at just over 6'6", 350, huge reach, obviously huge wingspan, right? Massive. Like, the mock draftable has him like at 90-something percentile. I was like 81 and 3/8 wingspan or something. Actually, it's only 44th percentile, but he had a crazy vertical. He's very athletic. He had a 32.
It was like a 32.5 inch vertical.
Yeah, right? Crazy. He's exactly, very athletic. All of his weaknesses are just playing tackle, and I think he's not so big and so asymmetric that he cannot play guard. I actually believe he can play guard.
Okay.
You disagree? You don't think he can translate?
I think that I think he's gonna face leverage issues at guard.
I mean, he's tall enough to. I don't think he's too tall. We'll see. Again, would I touch him with a 10-foot pole? No. I'm just saying that there is somebody out there who's going to take him. And they're going to bet on, like, okay, we'll see what he can do at tackle, but we're pretty sure we can do well at guard. It's a very curious case. That's all I'll say. let's stick with the offensive lineman for a second, because I think there's a world where the Giants, this is where we are really heavily scouring the offensive line world. The guys to discuss are, I had Rutledge over all of them. Personally, I had him as my offensive line, interior offensive lineman 2. And I thought I was being so clever when I came to that conclusion. And then like a few days later, freaking Brugler and everybody else is like, oh, no, he might go in the first round. Teams are seeing the value here because he's just a really good high floor starting guard, and he might be able to play center. He's just a good athlete, and he can be a versatile interior offensive lineman. And these guys, they profile that way, who are versatile interior offensive line guys, they tend to go a lot earlier than I think people realize. They tend to go in the back half of the first or the early part of the second. So there's Rutledge. I like him a lot. I would probably run to the podium to get him, at 37. And the other guys I think are Bisontis, who Brugler had higher than everybody else, and Pregnon. Let's take that group together.
Okay.
Those three, what are your thoughts on those two? Because I think they're probably in play at 37.
Yeah. So, and let me just say, they're all in that same tier. So even though Pregnon's 32 and Rutledge is 55, I don't really view them as that far apart. Right. I think for me, Pregnon had the best film out of everybody. I think I think one difference that I think I have from you guys is I think I tend to favor ceiling a little bit more than floor. And I think with Pregnon, I think his ceiling as a run blocker is incredible. Like, he is a fucking ass kicker.
He can move.
And he can move. He can really, really move. He's old. That's the again, I'm ageist. You can call me an ageist. I'm ageist.
He's almost 26, right? I mean, he's up there. He's 25 something.
Which I guess is not that big a deal for offensive linemen, but it does matter a little bit. In terms of Kalen Rutledge, right? So I think he's going to be phenomenal in a gap scheme. And he's another one of these gap scheme guys, which is what Georgia Tech loves to run. You see him pulling and getting to the second level a lot, and he does a pretty good job of it. So I think one of the concerns I have is sometimes when he's pulling, he whiffs. Sometimes when he gets to the second level, he whiffs. It's not the biggest deal. I think he's pretty clean in pass pro, which is nice. He does, when defenders cross face with him, sometimes he struggles. The game to watch for that is Clemson. I think, despite the shitting that we did on Clemson all night, I think that gave him a little bit of trouble. I saw him getting pushed back a little bit, but I think technically he is very, very clean. And I do like him a lot. I don't know that I'd go so far to say that I would take him in round 1, but I certainly would not be upset at 37. And then Chase Bisontis, local kid, Don Bosco Prep. So of course Joe Shane's gonna draft him, right? I think my comp for him was like Angry John Runyon. I think he has some of the same sort of strengths as a pass blocker. I think his pass blocking at times can be a little passive, because I think he has a little bit of core power issues. But I think he finishes blocks, and I think he does struggle. I think because of those core issues, I don't think he's the best run blocker. So if it were up to me, I would prefer Emmanuel Pregnon. That's why I have him 32. Specifically for the Giants, I think I would prefer Pregnon. Specifically for the Giants, maybe I take Rutledge over Bisontis, but I can certainly see, and the reason why I have Bisontis so high is because I think he's a great pass protecting guard.
Yeah, I largely agree with the assessment. Rutledge is he is a tough SOB. He's a finisher also. You know, he's a guy.
Yeah.
You know, he plays, and I don't just want a bunch of like maniac goons out there because they'll get penalties, but there's a way to do it, right? Like there are guys who just know how to finish their blocks and drive guys to the ground, not get penalties, and consistently wear down defensive linemen. And I think Rutledge is that guy. Is he the most athletic person in the world? No. But he's plenty athletic. He's very strong. Yeah, he's plenty athletic. And I think I agree with you. Like there were definitely pull blocks where he just kind of ran past his assignment, or you know, there you could see. I mean, I don't think it's a nothing burger. It's definitely something on film you see. I think that's a coaching point. It's not like he can't get there. He'll just go past it. You know, and that's different than the guys who don't have the foot speed to get there. But at the end of the day, I think like he's such a plug and play gap scheme starting right guard who's going to be good all around. I like him. I agree with your assessment in general. Pregnon, the two things that give me issue with Pregnon are his age and his balance. I do think there are some times that his balance. He's a kind of a top heavy guy. And he leans. And I saw some some better defensive linemen snatch him to the ground. And what was the game I was watching? Was it Tech? I think it was Texas Tech actually, where he really struggled. And I think, you know, like those are the kind of guys in the NFL, when you have those kinds of weaknesses, it's not an intermittent issue. Like defensive linemen in the NFL will take advantage of it continuously. So that's where his age gives me a little pause. But again, I think I'd be fine with any of them. I would prefer Rutledge. Monty, do you have thoughts on any of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I watched them all. Rutledge actually ended up being, there's other guy I want to mention, because Rutledge ended up being my interior offensive line 3, and I really liked him. I was reading some more in the Beast today, and it's funny because you know, they mentioned Brugler mentioned the Beast that he said he models his game after Quinn Meinerz, and that's all I could think of when I watched him. That's literally who I thought of. I'm like, hey, he could be the next Quinn Meinerz, or however you say his name. The one other
did you read what Chase Basanta said about who his hero is since he was a child?
It's because he's a Jersey guy. It was Quentin Nelson.
Quentin Nelson, yeah. Just
a couple Jersey guys. But the one guy we didn't talk about that you're a little bit lower on, Sal, and KSI and I are higher, is Jennings Dunker. Jennings Dunker ended up as my interior offensive line too. I think that he still has, you know, I was hoping he would come into this year and solve some of the issues that I had from pass protection standpoint as a tackle, but he didn't, and he's clearly going to have to move inside. Yeah, I think so much of that gets fixed by him going inside. I think it's, you know, him getting kind of put out on an island, giving him the space in like waiting on a guy and trying to time it up and open him is where he struggles. I think if you put him inside, you put him in close quarters, I think he'll dominate guys. And I just absolutely love his strength and his athleticism, his edge, the way he could just roll his hips and drive through people. I think he's going to be a menace in the run game. And I think I think he's a very smart player. I think that will come in moving inside. He handles twists very well. He handles stunts. I think that's something from the inside you'll be able to help the guys around him, and something you'll be able to diagnose. I don't think he can play tackle in the NFL, but I think he's going to be a good guard.
Yeah, I don't hate the guy. I was just a little bit lower. I watch more film, but I think he'll be fine at guard. I do think he also has some balance issues. You know, he tends to hit the ground, and I think that's just. Yeah. So again, it's minor stuff, and I don't know if it's coaching technique, but when you're coming from Iowa, I don't think you've been poorly coached. You know, so like it's just minor stuff, but I think that's kind of the range where I think offensive linemen become much more real for us. There are other guys that, like, you guys can look at the list. The cornerback room, though, I do want to discuss here, because I think there's a lot of good corners. You started with Keontae Scott, who Brugler has as a safety. I agree. We talked about this, right, Monty? Like, it's almost like it doesn't do the DPs justice to just call them cornerbacks and safeties. Like, you really need to, like, there's outside corners, there's nickels, there's box safeties, and then there's center field safeties, and they're not all the same, right? And so he's a nickel. He's a nickel safety, you know, and so I think he's actually kind of perfect for the Giants in his play style. I agree with you. Like, especially in this system that I think Denard Wilson's going to be running. Very good in press, physical at the line of scrimmage, eyes always in the backfield at the quarterback when he starts his rep. Doesn't really lose contain. I don't think he has long speed to go and be a man corner down the field, but I think he's really good in zone. So in like a match principle type system where he's pressing and he's got, zone responsibilities, but the ability to close and cover guys and be good in run support is really valuable. And I have no problem taking him. I don't think I would not draft over Drew Phillips, if that's what I wanted.
Harbaugh can replace whoever he wants, especially if they're not a superstar.
Yeah. D'Angelo Pons is the most I think the most interesting discussion in this class. If he was 2 inches taller, I would make a case that he might be cornerback 2 in this class. He's that freaking good.
I think he'd be quarterback 1.
Like he might be. Yeah. I don't. Other than his height, is there a single flaw you saw in his tape?
No. I said he's Roger McCreary with attitude. He had, I think, one of his best games against Oregon, and then again through the playoffs, just got better and better and better. Showed up big in big games. He has a 43.5-inch vert, which will help quell some of those concerns. And again, he destroyed Denzel Boston, who's a much, much bigger player. I mean, I can't ignore this. Like, you can't ignore the size. That is the big thing, right? So I don't think, I think that is disqualifying as a first round corner.
Yeah.
But I think that the second round is exactly where he should go, and I think the team's going to be really, really happy with him. But you are 5'9" is tough. But he's so good in everything else.
He's good in zone. He's good in man. Flips his hip as well as anybody. Runs as fast as anybody. Can outleap anybody. Great ball skills. Great in run support. I just, the question is are you converting him to a pure nickel? If you are, you worry less about the height stuff. I'll make a crazy claim. I think he can stick on the boundary in the NFL. I didn't see anything on his tape against bigger, faster guys that made me think he can't hold up on the outside.
Yeah. It's so tough, man. I'm a big believer in thresholds, and I obviously watched D'Angelo Pons, but when I finally got able to break deep down into him, and like you mentioned the Denzel Boston game, and I like Denzel Boston, so I didn't come away saying I don't like Denzel Boston. I came away saying, God damn, this D'Angelo Pons kid's I know he's smaller. I know that everything would tell you that this guy can't play outside, but I watch him play football and I'm just I think he can, man. My comp for him right now is Antoine Winfield Sr. Another small guy, and I think they play very the same. I mean, that's the thing about Pons. He's a great coverage guy, but it's more than that. He plays so much bigger than he is. A little bit of kind of what we discussed with Avion Terrell. He's just a good football player, but he's a better coverage guy. He's more athletic. I
have a different comp for him.
I like yours too. Let's say yours.
And I'm older than you guys. He reminds me a ton of Aaron Glenn coming out of Texas A&M. And I remember when Aaron Glenn was drafted. I think it was 1994 or something. And he was the same height, 5'9", same thing, almost exactly the same measurable, same thing. But he was like a mess you up corner at A&M. And in those days, they didn't have all this stuff televised and all. He had a private workout with Pete Carroll, who was the head coach of the Jets at the time.
Wow.
And
that's
Pete
a wild
Carroll,
pull, by the way.
Yeah. Pete Carroll fell in love with him. Holy shit, I need this guy on my team. And he was he was a multi-year starter, multiple-time Pro Bowler, same size. I mean, he reminds me so much of Aaron Glenn. I almost have a hard time seeing the Jets not take this guy. You know what I mean? Because I don't know how Aaron Glenn could look at him and not see Aaron Glenn. He played exactly the same style of football in college. So, and he was also Aaron Glenn was an elite punt returner and kick returner in college and a special teamer. And we should mention that D'Angelo Pons has a bunch of block kicks. He's a special teams ace and he's a gunner. and he's like one of the better gunners in the in college football. So like he's just a really damn good football player.
Yeah, he's one of the most interesting guys in this draft.
It took 2.5 hours for me to say Aaron Glenn, but I had to say it. Other corners, real quick. Chris Johnson and do we have anybody else in this category? Ksixi, I guess, right? So I think so what do you think about like those two guys? I think they're in the same batch. Yeah, I'm higher on Chris Johnson, but but he'll probably be, I think he'll be late first to early second kind of range.
Yeah, so really quickly, so my notes on Chris Johnson. So very clean footwork. I think his footwork rivals McCoy and Delane. I didn't think he was super physical. He has some inside outside flexibility. My comp for him was Maxwell Hairston, the Buffalo Bills first round pick. I am not the biggest fan of him, but I can see why people would be. And then Brandon Ksixi's he's got attitude. He's a very strong run defender. I think that's probably his biggest strength. But the dude is very grabby. I think he kind of panics at the catch point. I saw that as a very consistent theme with him. He's another guy who's in the hip pocket quite a bit, especially on the boundary. But I think he panics a little bit and gets a little bit grabby. But I think he's someone that I think could develop if he cleans some stuff up.
I agree with you on all of those. I don't think Johnson's getting to us at 37. Everything you're hearing, I think he was in the 20s for Brugler. I think he's going in the first round. I'm pretty confident that he's going in the first round at this point from everything I'm hearing. But Pons, I think, could be there. And I think so would potentially Scott. I think Scott will definitely be there. It gets interesting, right? Like, how much are you going to invest in the corner? What type of corner? Yeah. If you just want like a good football player, you're going to get him in the corner position here. I really think this is a good spot to get one. We've gone over wide receivers in this range, corners, guards, D linemen. We should probably discuss real quick. Kristen Miller is here. We did go over the other guys. What do you think about Miller? A lot of Giant fans love Miller. What are your thoughts on him?
I think he's another one of those guys that can two gap, but isn't really. He can two gap, but I don't see him being as consistent as Caden McDonald. So that's why I have him a tier lower. He's not. I don't think he's a pocket pusher.
You had him at 37. We had him at 57.
Yeah. I mean, I think he struggles with consistency, but I think he is certainly an upgrade as a run defender over anything we have right now outside of Tex, obviously. But there's not going to be much from a pass rush standpoint with him. I mean that he's a pretty easy eval as well. I think there were only really in the last couple of years, I only really had two guys that I thought were really legitimate two gapping, collapse the pocket pushers. One being Tavondre Sweat, but he had some off the field stuff, and the other being Alfred Collins, who went early second round. I didn't think he was going to go that early. But apart from that, I see it a little bit with Caden McDonald. I don't really see it with anybody else in this draft class. And certainly not Miller.
Yeah.
And then who else were we talking about? So let me just mention Keldrick Falk, because I think
he's going early.
I think he could be very, very good as a 5 technique. He's not going to be. I mean, he's like one of those. I think he's a tweener. What is he? He's like 280, 285 pounds.
He's in a 4-point stance all the time, which is really funny to watch. But,
he has so I mean, he's not really explosive. He doesn't really have a first step, but I think he does have some of that knockback.
He definitely does.
And I mean, my comp for him, he reminds me a lot of. I don't remember his name. the guy that New England drafted that they then traded in the first round. I don't remember.
I know. I think I know who you're talking about. The Georgia Tech kid. Was that who it was?
Yes.
Keontae Scott.
Yeah, or no, it wasn't Keontae Scott, but Keon White.
Keon White.
Yeah.
He's very much like Keon White. Yes. Thank you, D-Kid. Yes. But I think he would be an interesting player as kind of a Chauncey Golston type replacement for us. Especially if we maybe not at 37, but if say we trade Kayvon and we pick up, a late second round pick, I think he would be somebody that would be very intriguing to me, at least.
He'll go a lot higher.
He'll go a lot higher. I know. I don't think I have him at 34, but just from where we are from a team composition standpoint, he's not someone that I'd be looking to.
I agree with
take.
I think he's a little bit of the Michael Williams of this class in some senses.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah, that's fair.
We might as well just round out some of these position groups as we go, and you can just look at your notes and your position players, because if we don't get Sonny Styles round one, I mean, this is a good linebacker class. In this next batching of players, you have guys like Jacob Rodriguez, Jake Galde, and Josiah Trotter, and obviously Kyle Lewis. And I think if you want to just take your linebacker group on block, and talk about how you and Deontay Lawson, I should mention him. He's in that group as well. So how do you view that in terms of value and who you would go after? What do you think of these guys?
So, I mean, we didn't really talk about Anthony Hill at all.
Right, that's true. We haven't. Yeah.
He would be one of my biggest wants at 37. My comp for him is Devin Lloyd. I mean, he's very, very good in zone coverage. He's a very smart blitzer. His issue is sometimes he's overly aggressive. The negative game for him was Ohio State. He obliterated Mississippi State. So if you want to see the two sides of Anthony Hill, watch Ohio State and Mississippi State. Jacob Rodriguez, he's kind of like a height, weight, speed kind of guy. Insanely productive. And clearly I like him a lot. I have him as my 33rd best prospect. My question, again, looking at one of these Avengers type defenses, is he a product of the good players around him? I kind of had a question is he like the Bobby Okereke in that Wink defense from a few years ago? I think that he would fit really, really well here. I don't think he's as reliant on needing great defensive tackles in order to make plays, but he also had Lee Hunter and David Bailey and Romello Height. So that's a bit of a question. Jake Golde, he looks like Jack Campbell. He's an insane athlete, but he plays a bit soft. I don't know. I mean, that's what I kind of got. He doesn't always tackle with the most intensity. Sometimes he has some hesitation in coverage. He just looks a bit disappointing. But a good game for him, I wrote down was UCF. Kyle Lewis, another local kid. I think he's East Orange. I think he's from East Orange. He's like a very, very traditional will linebacker. Very, very light. You need to have good players in front of him in order to run and chase. I wasn't overly impressed, but I think that I don't necessarily think he's a great fit for us with the defensive tackle group that we have now. I think he's reliant. He's reliant on a good defensive tackle group. But out of that group, right? If we trade back, I'm great with any of those guys. I think I'd only really be happy with Jacob Rodriguez or Anthony Hill, or obviously CJ Allen at 37. I think that's anybody else I'd be a little gun shy for.
I'm pretty much in agreement with you. I think maybe I'm a little higher in Galde, but I think overall I think that's fair. Hill, the problem with Hill, I thought, you mentioned it, is discipline. And I don't know, like, the question is, can you trust him? You know, because he's so athletic and so like twitchy and fast. He'll just go flying past people and he'll lose his contain. And I think that's a concern. So he's definitely not a Mike. You know, in my mind, he's not a guy that can do that. He's a weak side linebacker. I think he's athletic enough to cover the sideline to sideline, do all that stuff. But you know, I think that's all stuff that has to be answered. The other guys, I fully agree with you. I think they're just different types. I think, like, for example, Lewis, I think is awesome. But I agree with you. Unless he doesn't just need a good defensive line. He needs a solid Mike linebacker who's stout against the run as a pairing mate, because he's not doing that. For him to be freed up to do his job. Conversely, Josiah Trotter is like the opposite, right? He's not going to drop back into coverage. Right. He's a hammer. He's the one who's coming downhill and blitzing and taking out the run and getting tackles for loss. But asking him to cover like as a hook defender and in zone, I'm not sure that's his strength. Right. So these guys are all somewhat limited, whereas like the top guy, Styles, is really not. Or Reese, you know, and I think that's and I think to some extent Rodriguez was well-rounded. To some extent, CJ Allen is well-rounded. I think after that there is a bit of a drop-off, honestly, in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say, I'm not the biggest fan of Anthony Hill, but you guys went over it. I agree with you guys. I just want to touch on Rodriguez a little bit. Rodriguez is interesting to me, but I'm also with you, KSI, where it's like, how much does the defense and that defensive line play into it? Because I don't necessarily see him as like a Mike, like come down, like take on block, shed it. But he doesn't necessarily have to be that. I mean, I think he is a former quarterback. I think he's really good in coverage. I think he reads routes very well. He's not the tallest, that can hurt him sometimes, but I think he's going to be a good coverage guy at the next level. And I think he's a playmaker. I mean, he gets takeaways, whether it's interceptions, whether he's, doing that peanut punch and getting the ball away. There's a role for him, but I do think it will be harder for him depending on who's around him, depending who the Mike is, depending who the defensive line is. But I do think he'll find ways to make plays.
I think a big one guy that I forgot to mention, I think a big wild card in this draft is Sal, you mentioned him, Deontay Lawson. Because I do think he was limited from while he was coming back from his ACL. And I think that kind of because he's another one of these 2024 guys that we thought, okay, early on in 2024, he was going to be ascendant. He was going to be like a first round pick. He was going to be like Jahad Campbell. But then he tore his ACL and he came back and he actually didn't do that bad of a job. I think I have a lot of concerns about his sideline to sideline ability and ability in coverage. But if that is, I don't know how limited he was just from being rusty and coming back from that ACL tear. I'd love to hear both of your guys' thoughts on him, because I think he's going to be going in day 3. I don't think he's going to be a day 2 guy. But he could be a sneaky good guy, in round 5.
Yeah, I think the injury stuff does kind of concern me a little bit. He's undersized also, right? He's not.
Yes, he's like 220, soaking wet, something like that.
He's almost like the linebacker of the last 10 years, and now we're moving towards like these more stout run defender type. So even though he's a good run defender, it's just between his injury and his size, I think he's a good football player. I think basically right now to start his career, he's looking at like a special teams rotational role. If you bring him in for that, and maybe he has the upside. He's one of those guys like with one of those 6th round picks. If you want to swing on a guy because you're saying, hey, he was injured and I'm going to bet on the upside here, I wouldn't be upset with a guy like Lawson with a 6th round pick. But I think that's where I feel comfortable with him. I don't know if I feel comfortable with him higher than that personally.
Yeah, I struggle with these smaller linebackers. I think they're a great fit in the college game, but I think it's getting harder and harder to find linebackers that translate to the NFL game. I think they're getting way more different at that position specifically.
Yep. We might as well go through some of this stuff because everybody's enjoying it. And I am too. I don't. Okay, do you have to go to bed or anything like that? It's late. If you want,
I got maybe like another 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's do what we can, and then we'll call it. this will be the longest ever episode of He's a Giant because it's amazing, which is
well,
hard.
Well, I don't know, but how long did we keep Waldman that first time?
He was getting upset. So, all right. We went through there is a batch of let me see. There's some receivers we haven't talked about. I do want to mention OB3, Odell Beckham III, Skylar Bell. We have him pretty high, and I think he's excellent. I just wanted to say that people can figure it out on their own. If you're wondering how good he is about it with his competition, go watch him versus Chandler Rivers and Duke. I don't know if you got a chance to watch that, but Chandler Rivers is a good corner. He demolished Chandler Rivers, and he's just, there's some advanced stats that support everything about him. He's explosive. He's a very good route runner. He's twitchy. He's like ballerina, like feet and pirouetting and cat body control. So, Rad is being a hater and saying he couldn't get on the field at Wisconsin. Because the Wisconsin offense is obviously the benchmark of great offensive play. They make the best decisions.
He got on the field. That offense can't do shit.
Anyway, but let's see. Yeah, worth mentioning Elijah Surratt, right? I think we all have him around the same area. Very solid receiver. Not like just good, well coached. I think he's a solid wide receiver 2-3 on the outside. I'm perfectly comfortable with taking him. Not at 37, but if we have another pick, I would be. Let me see what else what position groups have we discussed here? Let's talk about some of the other interior offensive linemen very quickly. The centers. Yeah. I didn't see him. Is he on your list? I don't know if I saw him, but Logan Jones, Connor Lew, and Slaughter. Let's talk about those guys.
I haven't watched. I watched Connor Lew. I haven't watched the other two.
Okay. We have Logan Jones quite high on our list. Actually.
Okay. Enlighten me, because I have not paid attention to Logan Jones at all.
Center from Iowa, 4-year starter, took over immediately after Tyler Linderbaum left and has basically started every game since. And he's just, I think I like him a lot. Monty likes him a lot more than me even. But I think the NFL really likes him. He's just really excellent, right? He's like Tyler Linderbaum light. Yeah. Or Tyler Linderbaum heavy.
Which I would it's one of those things where I watch Bo Stevens, I watch Jennings Dunker. I did not pay attention to the center at all. Yeah. But yeah, from what I understand, he was getting out into space, doing Linderbaum things. But please, sorry for cutting you off.
No, you're fine. He's not Tyler Linderbaum, but you watch him and he's lightning out of his stance. Very, very quick feet, comes out fast, which you need at the center position. And then it got backed up at the combine where he ran like a 4.9 and tested crazy, and all that shows up on tape. He's got vice grip hands. Like once he has you, you're not getting off. He's a good run blocker. He get him into space and he'll fuck guys up. The only issues that I really have with them is, I do think there's some strength issues. I do think, there's some anchor issues and things like that. But at the same time, look, I heard that with Tyler Linderbaum. At the end of the day, I don't trust many centers to go one-on-one with a 350-pound nose tackle and not get bitched. Yeah. It's not many guys in the league who can do that. And, it's a lot of these guys are the reality is a lot of times they're putting two guys on whoever they're blocking. So I think that he brings a lot of positives. I think he's a good player in the next level.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned his running mate, Bo Stevens. I really like him. I probably should have put him on my top 100 at the end of the day. I kind of debated it. I think he's a very good football player. And as somebody in the chat is asking, why didn't you guys do a mock where you took them both? I've done this in mocks where I've taken Logan Jones and then Bo Stevens back to back. I do believe in the whole synergy thing of guys who've played next to each other, whether it's on the offensive line, defensive line, cornerback room. Yeah. No, I think it adds a little bit of extra, transitional strength to the NFL where they just can learn how to play together at the next level. I think Stevens is excellent also. I think he's a very good, well-coached, another really well-coached interior lineman, not elite, but I don't see any weaknesses in his game. Right, I think he's just a solid player.
I like.
I don't know if
There's
I didn't get
athleticism concern with him, and I think his arms are kind of short. I saw some leverage issues with Bo.
Okay.
I can look it up. What his arm length was.
I got it. I got it. It's he came in at oh wow, 31 and an eighth. Okay.
Yeah,
but
it looks like.
I mean, for one percentile, first percentile, so they're in an eighth. But yes, on the inside, but still a little small, 9 1/4 inch hands. I didn't really pay attention to this part.
Yeah,
5'3", 540, as opposed to Logan Jones, who ran a 4.91.
Yeah, and I thought he had athleticism on tape, but obviously, clearly the testing did not back it up. Testing says more what you saw, so I clearly have to watch more. I liked Bo. I've only got to 60 on my big board. I still got to fill it out. He would, from what I've seen so far, he'd be pretty quick soon on to where
I think he times the snap really well, and I think he jumps off the line. But I just did have some. I mean, I think he's one of those guys. I think that's kind of like a higher floor prospect, but I question the ceiling with him.
That's fair. What do you think about the other centers? And I think we could probably call it with that part of the discussion, because
I think Connor Lew, I mean, would be my center one and would be much higher than some of the other centers had he not gotten injured. Asterisk, right. I think so. I'm gonna make him sound like JMS, but he's not like JMS. Simply because he also has a wrestling background, and so people automatically want to say, "Oh, well, didn't JMS wrestle too?" But I think Connor Lew has a tremendous anchor for a center, and I think that he's someone where I also question the athleticism a little bit. I watched more of him in 2024 than I did in 2020. I think I don't remember exactly when he tore.
It was early in the year that he tore his ACL, because he was our center. Was he our center one or center two? He was up there.
Logan Jones was our center one from the start, but
I think he was two. Right, and then he tore his ACL like a week later or something like that.
We comped him to JMS too, by the way. That was what we talked about when we were talking about him.
But I think from a pass protection standpoint, I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone better. Like, he's not someone that I think would get bitched by Vita Vea. I think in terms of footwork, he was pretty rock solid. I did have questions. I mean, I don't know that he's the most powerful guy in the run game, but and I didn't really see him get out in space too often. But he's someone that I'd liked back in 2024. Unfortunate what happened with him. Apart from that, I haven't really watched too many centers. I should, given that we were looking for Tyler Linderbaum, but I've been focusing more on guard with a lot of these teams. But that's really kind of where I land with him. Sam Hecht, I think is overall. I have him as a day 3 guy. I think there's power concerns with him. DK says I'm about to pass out. I gotta. No, I could keep going. I can keep going. But I think there's like some legitimate power concerns with Sam Hecht, and I think that affects both. He reminds me a lot of James Houston. I was about to say James Hudson. James Houston. I think more of an inside zone center. But I think he's someone that I think could develop. What
did you think? What did you think of Slaughter? Did you watch him from Florida?
From Florida?
Yes.
Not really. He was on the list, and then I just ran out of gas.
That's interesting.
let's end with a guy that you guys are really high on as a sleeper late, and a guy that you guys are, I think, who's the most disappointing player for you?
Most disappointing player. I gotta think about that. I'm not sure.
I would say, I mean, we talked about him already, but the way that people were talking up Monroe Freeling, I was pretty disappointed when I watched the tape, because I thought I was really, to me, after those initial, I struggle. There's a huge drop off for me after those like first few offensive linemen, after like Fano. I don't know who I'm gonna put next. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know if I can think of one right now. I can tell you who who I made sure I got at 100. I think that's what you're getting at. Is I'm assuming is Caden Proctor. I'm Caleb Proctor. Is that who you were talking about? Or
for me?
Sure. Yeah, no. Who you think you wanted to close? You wanted to close on somebody. I wasn't sure who you were.
No. So I was just asking you who you thought was the most disappointing prospect.
Okay.
And also someone that we haven't talked about that you think would be a great fit for us in day 3.
So I mean, I will throw in. I'll put in my 2 cents on Caleb Proctor here. I have him at pick 100. Mm-hmm. I've watched Caleb Proctor. He's from a small school of southeastern Louisiana. He's an interior lineman, but he is a kind of an athletic freak. I don't know if you had a chance to watch him at all, but he's insanely twitchy and fast, and he's outstanding at 1 gapping. But I think he's plenty strong to 2 gap. But he's constantly in the backfield, Now he's playing against lesser competition. It could just be he's much better than them. But I think it looks like it's going to translate. He just has the kind of athletic profile that I think I would bet on. I think if he played at a bigger school, you're talking about him kind of like as an early day 2 type of guy. Yeah. And I would say that's my day 3, sleeper. I have him at 100. Maybe he goes right around there. We have pick 105. I wouldn't be upset if we took a swing on a guy like Proctor there, because I think there's a huge amount of upside there. How about you?
So my day 3 guy that I really like is the Godfather.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah.
We reviewed him our first season.
Yeah. He's like he's Puna Ford. He's Puna Ford.
It's a cannonball.
Yeah. I think if you're looking for someone with upside at 2 gap that has some pass rush presence, I think it's him. I love leverage for defensive tackles. And he's 6 foot, 340. You can't get much more leverage than that. But I think he has to refine things, obviously, and his initial burst is lacking. And I think he needs to probably lose a little bit of weight to get a little bit more explosive. But he's someone I think in an NFL conditioning program, especially with the way Harbaugh runs his training camps, or so we hear, that I think could be a good fit. I think so. So the reason I posed, who's the most disappointing, I was so sad watching the Penn State running backs.
Yeah. So it's like Nick Singleton.
Singleton.
He just disappointed me years ago.
I just stopped thinking about him. That's probably why I didn't.
Which is horrendous. At one point, I'm like, this guy's gonna be like Nick Chubb, and he looks so slow, so indecisive. It honestly is extremely, extremely disappointing. And then Katron Allen is he's not draftable. He's like a big guy who's soft. He's a slow guy who's soft. What are you gonna do with that? But anyway, I think this is an interesting draft class. I think there's a lot. I'm shocked, Monty, that you didn't mention Garrett Nussmeier at all.
We don't need a quarterback, but he He's my QB2.
Over Ty Simpson.
Over Ty Simpson. And I love Ty Simpson's traits, but
yeah,
I'll say this: if we didn't have our quarterback, I would be rooting for us to take Garrett Nussmeier at 37.
I had Simpson at 2, but not very different than Nussmeier at 3.
Yeah.
And it was mostly on traits. But again, I'm not a big fan of Simpson. I don't really believe in it, and I just don't think he has the profile of the guy who typically succeeds in the NFL. Not enough snaps, not enough good snaps. Size doesn't help him, but we'll see. Yeah. Listen, that was a lot. Thank you. Yes, he is going to come back on the pod. Rad, asshole.
Hey, we got Waldman back on. We're getting KSI back on.
Some of us are grinders, and we go through all of these guys, and we know, like, to go through 100 guys, it takes weeks.
Yeah, I'm like Matthew Judon, body built by Taco Bell. Not a sponsor.
So everybody give KSIXI a follow and thank him for sitting through this. He's a busy man. He has kids like I do, and he probably has a wife who's gonna probably stab him when he strolls back into bed, like mine will soon. But thank him. He does a great job. Give him a follow. We will publish these lists. When I say we, I mean Monty. We'll publish these lists online, so you can take a look at them on Twitter. Make sure to give us a follow. Follow Monty. Follow me. Follow He's a Giant Pod. Hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you guys for sitting through this. Any closing thoughts before we move on here?
For Rad, Lane is soft and Fields isn't.
Oof. Yeah,
tough.
Well, he's I think he's asking why is Lemon so low on your list.
Anyway. Why is Lemon's not low on my list?
Is that what he asked, or what he said?
Lane. He said Lane.
Lane.
Oh, where'd Sal go? We lost Sal. All right.
Uh-oh.
I guess I closed it out without. No, Sal's back. Sal can still close it out. Sal, where the hell did you go?
Sal went to bed.
Sorry. Yeah, I fell asleep. No, I don't know what Rad's complaining about. I got pissed off at him and I decided to leave.
But the only thing I gotta say is, hey, we had a long episode, almost 3 hours, but we made it to 2,000 viewers. So hell yeah.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, sorry. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys. Anything else? All right,
Caleb Downs, no matter what.
Caleb Downs, no matter what. Write it down. Sonny Styles, no matter what. We're gonna end up drafting Jeremiah Love and Chase Basantis. Get ready for it.
There we go.
There we go.
Trade down, gentlemen.
Yeah. We have what, 2 weeks left, right? 3 weeks left before the draft.
3 weeks left. We're almost there.
We're almost there, gentlemen. Everybody, thank you for being here. Next week, Monty, I'll have to let you know. We may have to do a different day because I think I have a work dinner that night. So I'll let you know. But I'll let you know what the timing is. Otherwise, we're going to break down the last few weeks. I think we're going to have to go over some day 3 stuff, right? We have a lot of picks, 4 picks on day 3. And I'm personally in the camp of, like, I don't feel like we have to trade down. I wouldn't mind it, but I don't feel like we have to just to accumulate picks. I actually think, like, there's some depth in the class. And I think a well-run scouting department should be able to make something out of those 4 day 3 picks, 5 day 3 picks. And so I think there's some strategies I would like to see in place. So we'll do an episode on day 3 strategy. But otherwise, thank you all for being here. We appreciate all of you. Tune in next time. Remember, like and subscribe. Thank KSI. Go Giants.
Go Giants.